the Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft set to launch Polaris Dawn, space's 5th Dragon mission flying civilians to orbit, and overall our 14th human spaceflight mission since 2020. Our 4-person Polaris Dawn crew is getting ready to head to space in just under 3.5 hours from now. This mission marks one more step toward our ultimate goal of making humans multiplanetary. Good evening. I'm Kate Tice, Senior Quality System Engineering Manager here at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Jessie Anderson, a Senior Manufacturing Engineering Manager. Welcome to the webcast for the Polaris Dawn mission. The Polaris program is a first-of-its-kind effort to rapidly advance human spaceflight while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes here on Earth. The goal is to demonstrate important operational capabilities that will serve as building blocks to further human space exploration.
Polaris Dawn is the first mission in the Polaris program. The program will consist of up to 3 human spaceflight missions that will demonstrate new technologies, conduct extensive research, and ultimately culminate in a flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board.
The Polaris Dawn crew will orbit Earth for up to 5 days before splashing down off the coast of Florida, and they will be performing some incredible firsts in space, including the first ever commercial spacewalk in our newly designed EVA spacesuits. The spacecraft will also attempt to soar higher than any Dragon mission to date, and if successful, break the altitude record set by Gemini 11 a half a century ago. The Polaris Dawn crew will also be the first to test Starlink laser-based communications in space.
In addition to those incredible firsts, the crew will conduct a wide range of research in microgravity designed to advance both human health on Earth and our understanding of the impacts on health during future long-duration spaceflights. We'll be going into more detail about all of that later on in the show. All of the Polaris missions will be commanded by Jared Isaacman, an accomplished pilot and astronaut who led Inspiration4, the world's first all-civilian mission to orbit that helped raise more than $240 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Building on Inspiration4, Polaris Dawn will continue to raise funds and awareness for St. Jude while partnering with the organization to provide healthcare in underserved communities around the world. As the Polaris program expands our understanding of what's possible in human spaceflight, St. Jude will continue to strive here on Earth to improve global survival rates for childhood cancer.
It is a really exciting day for us here at SpaceX, and it's already been a very busy day for the team. Now, we are currently awaiting walkout of the Polaris Dawn crew from the suit-up room. So while we wait, let's take a moment to meet our crew.
As I mentioned, Mission Commander Jared Isaacman served as commander of Inspiration4, the world's first all-civilian mission to space. He holds several world records, including 2 speed around the world flights in 2008 and 2009 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He has flown in over 100 air shows as part of the Black Diamond Jet team, dedicating every performance to charitable causes. In 2011, Jared co-founded what would become the world's largest private air force, Draken International, to train pilots for the U.S. Armed Forces. In addition to his role as CEO of Shift4, Jared is an accomplished pilot and astronaut with over 7,000 flight hours.
Mission pilot Scott Poteet served as the mission director for Inspiration.
There it is, your Polaris Dawn crew. As you can see, an incredibly impressive group with a diverse range of expertise that will certainly serve them well over the next 5 days in orbit.
Working here at SpaceX, we've been fortunate to spend time with the crew. You'll see them walking around, getting lunch. We have a personal connection with the people we'll be sending to space and back. So let's take a moment to meet our Polaris Dawn crew in their own words.
Hi, I'm Jared Isaacman.
I'm Scott Kid Poteet.
I'm Sarah Gillis. And I'm Anna Menon.
And we're the Polaris Dawn crew. I love this crew. I mean, all of them are just so hardworking, so smart. Kid Poteet over here is our mission pilot. Talk about a career in the Air Force, doing every job as a pilot that anyone would aspire to achieve. And having somebody who has been there before and can bring that perspective to our training, but also when we're on the mission is just so important.
We are what we are as a crew because of you. You hold us together and you are always there.
Glue.
You are always there predicting what every person needs.
And he's needy.
What?
Our commander, Jared, I think he is incredibly sharp.
That's right.
Something I have just witnessed over and over is that he's always like 5 steps ahead of everybody else.
He's a visionary. He wanted to make it bigger than just himself going to space. It was about how we could contribute and support organizations here on Earth, as well as continue to push the envelope for space exploration.
So Sarah Gillis, the technical competence, we don't get out of any engineering update or brief or go through a procedure or debrief without getting into the weeds and making sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted.
She holds my feet to the fire when we need to understand the systems and the operations. It's her intellect.
Every time she speaks, every word is so thoughtfully prepared that served her in her role as core. It served her in her role as a trainer. Anna, you have this incredible joy that you bring to everyday life. It is infectious. It makes us all smile.
Feels like she always has this big picture. Doesn't necessarily always speak up on it, but when she does, it's like time for everybody to stop and listen. And then as a biomedical engineer and a background like that inspires like a ton of confidence that when you go up there, if people aren't feeling right, that she's going to be there to take care of her.
I cherish all the moments that we've had in these experiences, and we're just so excited to go to space.
Hey everyone, I'm Atticus Federa, a propulsion engineer here at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. You just heard from the crew while sitting inside their Dragon trainer, which is an exact mock-up of the Dragon that they will be living in for the next 5 days. Dragon is the first private spacecraft to take humans to the International Space Station, and it's currently the only vehicle capable of returning significant amounts of cargo to Earth. It's also the first private spacecraft to take an all-civilian crew to orbit during the Inspiration4 mission in 2021. Over the last 4 years, the spacecraft has supported 13 human spaceflight missions and flown 50 crew members representing 14 countries. Through missions like Inspiration4 and Polaris Dawn, Dragon is helping lay the groundwork for deep space exploration, rapidly expanding our knowledge of how humans will adapt, live, and work in space. Dragon can also help discover more about our home planet, and with the upcoming mission like From2, we aim to do exactly that. Named in honor of the ship that helped explorers first reach Earth's Arctic and Antarctic regions, the crew of From2 will be the first to explore Earth from a polar orbit. From2 will be SpaceX's 6th commercial astronaut mission and will allow the crew to observe Earth's polar regions through Dragon's cupola at an altitude of 425 to 450 kilometers. Over the years, Dragon has proven to be quite a versatile spacecraft. It can autonomously dock to the space station when outfitted with the ISS docking adapter. In free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola for the best views while in orbit, and that's going to be the case with the upcoming From2 mission. Finally, we have the newest option, the Skywalker hardware, to support a spacewalk, and that'll make its debut on Polaris Dawn.
Atticus, now let's take a moment to see what the Polaris Dawn crew and SpaceX teams have been up to today and what we can look forward to in the mission. The crew's wake-up call took place at about T-7 hours. After that, they went straight into checkouts with the medical team. And then they had an opportunity to sit down with their families for their first meal of the day before heading off to the suit-up room.
Next, the crew climbed into the Tesla transport vehicles and made their way to the Falcon support building. Once they arrived, the SpaceX team briefed the crew on weather and launch details and also gave them their tablets that they'll be bringing with them on the flight. At T-3 hours and 45 minutes, the crew began suiting up in our brand new EVA spacesuit, which brings us to the current point in their events for the day. Now, once they are fully suited, they will then exit the Falcon support building and get into their Teslas again. We will have 2 astronauts in each vehicle, led by a support vehicle. And then from there, the crew will head to the launch pad. And once they arrive, they will ascend the crew tower in an elevator up to the 255.
Countdown advance team is complete with their steps and ready for crew arrival on schedule.
Great news there. Sounds like the crew is tracking right on time with our planned countdown.
Yeah.
Now, after they take that elevator, they'll actually take the stairs up the last 10 feet to the 265-foot level, and that's where the crew access arm is located. That's where they will stop and make one final phone call before walking down the crew arm to the White Room. And the White Room is their last stop before climbing into the spacecraft, a process known as crew ingress. During ingress, the SpaceX team will run a series of checks to ensure the suits, seats, and vehicle interactions are all functioning properly. After all the vehicle and crew checkouts are complete, the SpaceX closeout team will close Dragon's side hatch and depart the pad. At T-minus 40 minutes, the crew access arm will retract away, followed by the arming of the launch escape system.
And once the arm is retracted and the escape system is armed, propellant loading on Falcon 9 will begin. At T-minus 5 minutes, Dragon will be configured for terminal count. This is when Dragon's onboard computers take control of the spacecraft. And then finally, at T0, Dragon and Falcon 9 will lift off. While we wait for the crew to finish getting suited and make their walkout, let's get a quick status check on the countdown. How's it going, John?
Well, Jesse, the good news is it's going well right now. I'm John Innsbrucker, Falcon 9 Principal Integration Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently just under T-minus 3 hours, 10 minutes, and everything, as I mentioned, is going well. Just over an hour ago, the crew received their weather briefing. Currently, it's a 60% probability of violation. While the local winds are good, we're looking at scattered showers, thick clouds, possibility of flying through rain, and that's what's got the constraints as high as 60% violation. The good news is for the ascent corridor and around the world, conditions are looking better. It's actually the best weather forecast overall we've had since we started scheduling the launch. The challenge we have is a forecast has to predict good weather in the splashdown locations throughout the 5-day mission. And that's what's caused delays since late August up until this evening. Now, currently at Space Launch Complex 39A, you can see there on the screen, Falcon 9 and Dragon vehicles. They're quiet. The SpaceX ground support team, as we heard a minute ago, they're in the tower and they'll be awaiting the crew whose walkout is coming up. Now, we're currently on schedule to launch at 7 hours, 38 minutes, and 5 seconds universal time. We have the advantage today of nearly a 4-hour launch window. Now, if we're flying crew to the International Space Station, our window would be 1 second long. We have a very short window to the ISS to maximize performance of the Falcon 9 based upon when the space station passes overhead. But Polaris Dawn isn't going to the ISS. We don't need to use a 1 second constraint. Instead, if we do have weather or an issue that might crop up and take some time to clear up, we can delay the launch up until about 11 hours, 15 minutes universal time. But as always with Falcon, once we start propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes, that will commit us to launching. If we had to hold the countdown at that point, it would be a launch scrub. We would not launch later in the window. But at T-minus 3 hours, 8 minutes and counting, everything is go for launch.
As John mentioned, we are getting close to the T-minus 3 hour mark. We are standing by for crew walkout. This view here is one of the doors of the Falcon Support Building, or FSB, and that is part of Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. And right behind those doors is where our SpaceX suit-up room is located.
Yeah, super exciting. You can see the Polaris Dawn logo there on your screen. But again, this is where the crew will walk out. They'll get to say, some final goodbyes before they get into their Teslas and make their way to the launch pad. So very exciting. I can't wait to see them walk out in their new suits.
Yeah, like I said, this is at 39A, and they will be getting into the Teslas to ride up to the pad. Even though it's just a little bit less than a mile, they could do the walk, but we're not going to do that in the Florida humidity. We want to keep them nice and cool.
It's a little bit of a walk, as you say. It's not that far, but it's a 3% grade or a 5% grade going uphill. So that's a little bit to do in your suits, even if they're flexible EVA suits.
They are made for walking, but walking in space.
Yeah,
not on the ground.
Good point. That's an excellent point. I was actually at Cape Canaveral a couple of weeks ago for some work, and I actually did that walk, John, that you just mentioned. Now, I did it kind of in the middle of the day, and there was definitely a grade. I didn't know it was 5%, but it was more than I cared for. Now, we are standing by for the walkout of the Polaris Dawn crew. We are expecting our 4 crew members to emerge from those doors there on your screen. These are the same doors vehicles that you have seen other crews emerge out of, including the Inspiration 4 crew that was also commanded by Jared Isaacman. So it's gotten a bit of a facelift since then, so it might look a little different, but it's the same Falcon support building and the same suit-up room that we use to allow time and checkouts for the suits to be put on and make sure that everything fits properly before getting in the cars to head up to the pad.
Yeah,
right.
Kate, you talked a bit about the mobility of the suits and some of the upgrades we've made for these EVA suits. I'm hoping we get to see some of that mobility just with the walkout here and with the crew just getting ready to get in their Teslas. These suits are really an amazing feat of engineering. The engineering that went into the joints and just the mobility of the hands and the wrists, we're really going to get to see just an excellent view of all of that. It's pretty exciting. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, just like the IVA suits are an extension of the spacecraft, this is going to be even more so. This is essentially, EVA suits are basically a spacecraft in itself. So I really can't wait to see them in these suits.
We're very excited for you all to see them as well. This will be our first look at the crew today. While they have done many rehearsals and practices, in fact, there they are now. Our Polaris Dawn crew, SpaceX's 5th all-civilian crew to fly on Dragon.
Wow, they just look so cool, don't they?
They really do.
They came out with their visors down, which I thought was really awesome. And now they got their visors up, raising the roof
Some
there.
nice dance
This is
moves.
4 on countdown. Crew walkout is on schedule.
Yeah, and you can see even just with how they're waving and moving their arms around, really the IVA suits are not capable of doing that type of motion. So you can really see that even though the suits do look similar, as we've said, there's quite a few upgrades that have gone into these suits.
Yeah, I'm personally looking forward to seeing if the astronaut lean back move will look any different than what we've seen with the IVA suits. So yeah, at first glance, they might not look super different from the intravehicular suit or IVA suit that we've seen before. And oh, look at this great view of mission specialist and medical officer Anna Menon there on the far right-hand side of your screen. To the left of her is Sarah Gillis, also a mission specialist. To the left of her, but in a different vehicle, is our pilot, Kid Poteet. And on the very left-hand side of your screen, of course, is Commander Jared Isaacman.
This is like one of my favorite views, getting to almost be inside of the cars with them, but getting to see the crew in their suits. Again, they use these vehicles to help keep cool air flowing through their suits as well, so they can connect their umbilicals into these vehicles as they make their way to the launch pad. But they also get to listen to, hopefully, at least a song on the way to the launch pad. It's only going to be about
it's like
5
one
minutes.
song.
Yeah, pretty short playlist.
But they do get to pick, even though it's a short ride, their one song that they get to listen to is chosen by each of the crew members. So
it looks like the SpaceX suit-up team has assisted the crew into the Teslas. The door's closing now, and the crew will be departing up to Pad 39A momentarily. I love this view. They all look so excited.
Great color palette here, too, with the white of the suits and the white of the Teslas. Looks great.
What I'm curious, we haven't seen a shot of license plates, because a lot of time the Teslas have some kind of a slogan or a saying spelled out on the plates.
Unique to the mission, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've got anything for this one.
Yeah, I guess we'll see, because they are now making moves. You can see the support vehicle leading the way with the 2 Tesla vehicles, bringing the Polaris Dawn crew on their way to the launch pad.
This is Core on countdown. Crew transport to the pad is in progress.
We can see music is clearly going on as we got some conducting there momentarily.
Very excited crew heading to the pad here.
Yeah, just like Jesse mentioned, there is still cool nitrox or nitrogen oxygen air mixture flowing into their suits. That's what we saw the suit up team assisting with, helping to plug them in. So helping make sure that everyone stays comfortable in this short ride up to Pad 39A.
Some big smiles there.
They're cruising.
And you could already see the launch pad right there. You could see how close it was. Very short drive. Again, just enough for one song.
Yeah. Now, like we said, the team has performed rehearsals, in fact, a full dress rehearsal where we simulated everything with the launch countdown up to T0. So while the Polaris Dawn crew has put these suits on and has ridden up to the pad in the dark, they've never done it on launch day before. And the feeling of standing next to your spaceship as it, is getting ready to have propellants loaded on board, it just must much be such a different experience. And Jared's feeling it for the second time, so I'm very excited to see his reaction in particular.
I like how he told them, take less stuff. But yeah, I wonder what he's told them about this, because when they walked out of the FSB, when we saw them, and oh, by the way, they were right on time, so schedule's looking good.
Anna was out.
She was very excited. First one out the door.
I'd be the same.
But yeah, when they came out the FSB, they're on the south side, so they can't see the rocket until they actually start to go up the grade, up the pad. So I wonder what their thoughts are as they finally see it all illuminated, going, this is it, it's not a rehearsal.
So while we don't have a close-up shot back there, we were just barely able to see the license plates. They say for St. Jude, and they have original artwork from St. Jude patients, which is so cool.
I love that. I love that St. Jude has the patients do a lot of art, and they utilize the art.
Yeah. Here's a great view.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah, some thumbs up.
Our commander and pilot have stepped out of their vehicle with some waves and thumbs up.
So you can see the machine there, which provides the cool air in the transport vehicle. The next step will be for them to take a look at their rocket and spaceship, and then they will enter the elevators and take that up to the 255-foot level. After that, they'll take a flight of stairs up the remaining 10 feet to where the crew access arm is located.
Right now you can see there's a team with them helping assist them with anything that the crew needs. Even though these suits are very mobile, we do want to make sure that the crew is able to easily function, and you can see that they're helping with the umbilicals on each suit as they're going to make their way into the elevator and up the crew tower. And some excited waves and smiles there. The crew is going to, they're walking over to be able to check out their vehicle, as Kate was saying. And a little bit of a lean back.
There's a lean back, yeah.
Not quite as much as the IVA suits, but.
It is a bit of a challenge where they are, because they're on the side of the vehicle with the strong back, and that'll recline a little bit.
Countdown. Crew have arrived at the pad.
Yep. And the core keeping track for us on the countdown net, telling us as major events have happened. Again, we're still right on time. But yeah, when they lean back, kind of got an obstructed view of the Falcon 9 with the Dragon on top, because the strong back kind of is in the way. But that's just the price of coming up on the elevator side.
Oh, yeah. They've got a long way to look up. It's over 200 feet to the top of that rocket. So,
nice moment here to get some photographs with the entire crew in front of their Falcon 9 rocket. Now, the Falcon 9 that's flying today is making its fourth trip to space. It previously supported the Crew 8 mission as well as 2 Starlink missions. And the Dragon spacecraft that they'll be flying in is Dragon Resilience, which first flew with the NASA Crew 1 mission and was followed about a year later with the Inspiration 4 mission.
And as we mentioned, this will be Jared's second time not only flying with SpaceX, but also this capsule itself.
Yeah. And we can see there that the first pair, I believe, was Anna and Sarah, have entered the elevator. Right about now, they're hitting the button labeled space on that elevator panel. Once again, that goes up to the 255-foot level.
Once they get to that 255-foot level, they will walk up some stairs, and that'll take them to a very traditional telephone. Well, they'll get to make a phone call to whomever they wish, and they'll be able to, And there they are. They've arrived at the 255-foot level. They've exited the elevator, and we'll see the stairs here momentarily.
A lot of people coming out of that elevator.
Yeah.
And we can see these arrows on the ground marking the direction for emergency egress. So you will notice that they'll give a little wave there, some fist bumps. Like we've mentioned, that there's been a lot of training that goes into these missions, and so they have close relationships with the crew members. And speaking of crew members, like we've mentioned before, Jared Isaacman was the commander of the last mission to fly with this Dragon capsule, which was Inspiration 4. The Inspiration 4 crew walked the very same steps that you see the Polaris Dawn crew making now. And they also had an opportunity to make this phone call that we're going to see take place here. So we got a chance to talk with the Inspiration 4 crew. Here's who they decided to talk to for their last phone call before flying to space.
When we got to the top of the launch tower, Jared and I came out of the elevator and went around and up the stairs and had a chance to make that final call with that really old push-button phone. And they still pay the phone bill, so it works. That's great. I chose not to call my wife because we had decided together that we had said our goodbyes after breakfast, and there was no need to kind of repeat that. So what am I going to do to make the most of this moment? Well, I decided to pay it back towards my friend Kyle, who gave me the seat to begin with. And I was so glad that he kept his phone on. So when I called his number and they dialed it for me, and I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Kyle, how are you doing?" And he just started cracking up. He was really excited that I gave him a call and said, "What are you calling me for?" And so, well, I figured I'd give you a call before I get launched off this rock. And he I really appreciated that moment. It's another way to include those people that support you along the way. So yeah, I called my friend Kyle, and I think it was the right choice. I hope he appreciated it.
For me, that last phone call before leaving the Earth was something that I knew would be significant. And I'm in a situation where my parents have passed away. I'm divorced. I have no kids. And my first, idea was to talk to somebody who had influenced me, somebody that I looked up to. And so I asked to talk to Michelle Obama. And I was really fortunate that we had connections to be able to make that happen. But that phone call is a personal moment, so nobody else gets to share it. So instead of me having that phone call with Michelle Obama at that moment before leaving the Earth, where it would have been just between me and her, we moved it to the day before, so that my entire crew could have this experience of talking with her, which was the right decision. She was amazing. And then that left me with the opening of like, okay, well, who am I going to talk to? And I talked to my brother Langley, which was really great because I didn't know it at the time, but he has early onset dementia. And so this was very special to have that moment with him.
Well, and all of my kids fell in love with Langley and started calling him Papa Langley. And, spent a lot of time with him. He was absolutely fantastic with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I chose to call my mom, my brother, and my sister-in-law. And my brother and sister-in-law are actually aerospace engineers. And so they had been such a big part of my journey because after a long day of training, I would be studying and I would call and say, like, what does this mean? And it also really bonded us even more. It was just been such a special journey, all of us together. And then getting to talk to them from the launch pad. I remember my mom just telling me that she was proud of me. And then I just remember hanging up because kind of in that moment you shift from the day of launch. There's just so many exciting moments where you're surrounded by people cheering you on, but then after you hang up and you turn towards the rocket, you're just very mission focused, like, okay, we're doing this now.
What a great way to summarize that. We're doing this now. And here they come down the crew access arm. This is basically their final approach to the Dragon spacecraft. This access arm will lead them into the White Room, which is an environmentally controlled room. Helps keep it environmentally stable for the crew and the spacecraft. All love the heart symbol there.
This is so exciting to see our 2 SpaceX employees making their way down the crew access arm, getting ready to ingress Dragon.
Yeah, but first, before they do that, they are going to be handed a Sharpie. In fact, it's right there. And they're now going to add their name to quite an esteemed wall of signatures. They're going to sign it next to the X logo, of course, which is for our astronauts that fly with our private missions, next to the NASA meatball for the NASA astronauts.
This is Core on countdown. Crew have arrived at the White Room and expecting ingress imminently.
It's quite incredible just to see the number of signatures around that X. You know, we talked about Inspiration 4, which was only a few years ago, and now here we are with Polaris Dawn, which is our 5th all-civilian mission to space. You know, so we're just really getting the numbers up in terms of private civilians going to space.
Yeah, I love this. I love this tradition that you get to sign the wall when you get to fly and basically be able to leave a mark at least somewhere right before you lift off to outer space.
And what's also super cool is this process of ingress that we're seeing. You'll notice crew members in the basically their black onesies, the ninja suits. And these are all part of the closeout crew. You can see a tablet there in action. They're following along with our electronic procedures, or EPROCs. And what I think is so cool about this mission in particular is that the 2 women that you see on your screen now are part of the larger space operations team that helped to develop these procedures that the closeout crew are using now. So I think that's such a very cool full circle moment.
Also note in the White Room, you know, it's a FOD, foreign object debris. Make sure there's not anything that you're tracking in. You don't want to bring it into the capsule. And the tablets are an example of that. You know, when I came up in the business, everything in the clean room was still paper. And you'd watch somebody actually using a pencil and eraser and trying to erase something, and then all of the little rubber shavings are going down on the ground. You're going, oh, wait a minute, that kind of violates the concept of no FOD.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. The White Room is actually a clean room environment. So the crew arm is actually pressed up against the Dragon spacecraft to create a seal to make sure that, you know, it's environmentally controlled inside of the crew access arm as well as the White Room before they ingress to prevent, you know, FOD and any exterior weather entering inside the White Room.
This is a great view of the crew access arm in its entirety. We can see that they are now entering the capsule very carefully. There are some protective pieces around the hatch that helps protect the hatch itself, as well as the suits and helmet. We can see now that Jared and Kid have entered the White Room and are about to add their signature. I have a feeling that Kid may have just pointed to Jared's original signature from his Inspiration 4. And I think Jared's probably trying to figure out what to do now.
Yeah, where does he put his second signature? He's our second frequent flyer after MLA. Michael Lopez Alegria, who flew twice on Dragon, and now Jared gets to be a frequent flyer on the same spacecraft that he flew on before with Inspiration 4.
Yep, very cool.
I don't think we have an Air Miles program set up yet, but maybe one day we will.
We got to work on that, yeah.
So inside the capsule, Sarah and Anna are getting situated in their seats. There is a closeout team member inside the capsule helping them get buckled in with their safety harness. Oh, actually, we can see there now our first live view inside Dragon Resilience. Sarah and Anna occupying the window seats, as it were, which is absolutely the seat I would also want if I were flying a Dragon.
And
But more importantly, mission specialist seats go in because that'll still leave the center line open for when Jared and Kid go on in. So there is kind of an order to how you get into the Dragon spacecraft.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned before, our procedures document all of this down to a T, even down to the fact that the pad preparation crew that arrives in advance of the astronauts, they actually have it in their procedures to make sure there is a Sharpie ready to go in the white room. So we can see now Scott, or he actually goes by his call sign Kid Poteet, now making his way momentarily, getting a final check for zipper fitment and the finer adjustments of the spacesuit before ingressing into the capsule. Jared waiting so patiently.
Yeah, and the crew is there again to help them. They're also helping check for FOD, but you'll also see them as they ingress to protect their helmets from hitting the hatchway as they enter, making sure they don't damage the suits, making sure they don't hurt themselves while they're entering. And that's what that crew is there for, is to help them with every and anything in preparation to get into their seats and get ready for liftoff.
We can see the suit up, the closeout team there assisting Kid, make sure he doesn't bump his helmet as he enters. If you're wondering what that green flashing light is, that's actually a hazardous operation indicator used at all of our facilities around Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. Green means go, as you can see. We will, of course, right about, whenever we have a pad clear period, that status indicator will change to yellow and red, of course.
Yeah, Jesse talked about the clean room, the white room, and the seals around the spacecraft. You get a little bit of a look as Jared gets ready to ingress. But the seals are in place. Later on, we ought to see, they'll retract the seals, and then you can see daylight, or in this case, night, around the spacecraft as we get ready later on to retract the arm. And there goes Jared into Dragon.
The last Polaris Dawn crew member to ingress the Dragon spacecraft.
I can't wait to see an up-close photo of what Jared decided to do with signature number 2. We can see all 4 crew members now in their seats, Sarah and Anna. So just a quick rundown on the far left side of your screen. In seat number 4 is Anna Menon. Then to the right, we have Kid Poteet, our pilot, followed by Jared Isaacman, our commander. And then on the far right side, Sarah Gillis, now getting strapped into her 5-point safety harness as well. A nice view of the vehicle from the exterior as well as the interior. For those of you that have just recently joined us, this is pad 39A. This is personally my favorite launch pad in the world. It's where many shuttle missions took off, as well as many Apollo missions, including Apollo 11. This is where humans first left for the moon from.
And Kate, as we look at this view, we talked about they went up to the 255-foot level and then 10 feet up and across the arm you see on the right, and now in the capsule. You go back to the shuttle days, just to give you an idea of the size of Falcon 9 with Dragon. Shuttle, they got off at the 195-foot level and then entered the shuttle. So the actual 255 and higher, that pretty much was to give everybody an overview looking down on the entire shuttle stack. So if you wonder how big the Falcon 9 is, it's taller than a space shuttle.
Now, while the crew gets situated in Dragon, Let's just take a moment to get familiar with the spacecraft that they will call home for the next 5 days. Designed to be the safest spacecraft ever flown, the fully autonomous Dragon stands nearly 27 feet tall and 13 feet in diameter. Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers, but for today's mission, it's carrying the 4 members of the Polaris Dawn crew. The crew will spend the majority of their time in the pressurized section, which is the top portion of the spacecraft. This area allows for the transport of people and environmentally sensitive cargo. Dragon's trunk, which sits just below the pressurized section, not only carries unpressurized cargo, but also supports the spacecraft during ascent, and it remains attached to Dragon until shortly before re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. And as you can see there, half of the trunk on the left is covered in solar panels, and that provides power to Dragon during flight. The spacecraft is equipped with 16 Draco thrusters, which are used to orient the spacecraft during the mission. Each Draco thruster is capable of generating 90 pounds of force in the vacuum of space. These engines are as important to Dragon as the Merlin engines are to Falcon 9. In addition to the 16 Draco thrusters, there are 8 Super Dracos that power the spacecraft's launch escape system. In the unlikely event of an emergency, the Super Draco engines can power Dragon half a mile from the launch vehicle in less than 8 seconds. And just like Falcon 9 first stage, Dragon is also reusable. In fact, Polaris Dawn crew is flying today in the same spacecraft that supported NASA's Crew 1 mission and Inspiration 4. There are a few changes that we've made to Dragon for this mission. In order to accommodate a spacewalk, this is the first Dragon to be outfitted with a Skywalker in place of the cupola observation dome. The Skywalker is a structure that is mounted to the top of Dragon, as you see there on your screen, and the astronauts will use this to assist in exiting and re-entering the spacecraft during their spacewalk. This Dragon is also carrying Starlink, making this the first mission to attempt to use the Starlink network in orbit. Inside of Dragon is a router connected to a user terminal in Dragon's trunk. This terminal will be linked to a new device known as the Plug-and-Placer, which will enable the spacecraft to communicate with Starlink satellites that will be in orbit below Dragon. We're excited to see all of this in action, but Dragon has to get there first. So let's take a look at the rocket that will be taking our crew to space. Dragon will be delivered to orbit today by SpaceX's Falcon 9, the first orbital-class rocket capable of reflight. Reusability allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, and that drives down the cost of spaceflight. To date, Falcon 9 has performed 369 orbital launches, 326 landings, and 300 reflights. Standing about 65.5 meters, or about 215 feet tall, Falcon 9 is a 2-stage rocket that provides 1.7 million pounds of thrust on its first stage, thanks to its 9 Merlin M1D engines. Today's mission will be the 4th launch and landing for this booster. It previously supported NASA's Crew 8 mission to the International Space Station in March earlier this year. It's also supported two SpaceX Starlink missions. After stage separation, when the first stage has done the bulk of its job for the day, it will initiate 2 burns as it makes its way back down towards Earth. First burn is the entry burn to help slow Falcon 9 down as it prepares to re-enter Earth's atmosphere. And finally, on the first stage, we have the landing burn, which will further decelerate the rocket just enough to perform a precision landing on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. And that drone ship is currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. The Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs made of state-of-the-art carbon fiber with an aluminum honeycomb. Placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket, they're stowed during ascent, and they will deploy just before landing. Moving up the rocket, Falcon 9's second stage. This engine ignites just a few seconds after stage separation and can be restarted multiple times to place multiple payloads into different orbits. The second stage is powered by one single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC engine, and this engine is capable of more than 220,000 pounds of thrust. The MVAC features a significantly larger expansion nozzle to maximize the engine's efficiency in the vacuum of space. At full power, the Merlin vacuum engine operates with the greatest efficiency ever for an American hydrocarbon rocket engine. And let's not forget the unsung inner stage, a composite structure that connects the first and second stages. It also houses the pneumatic pushers that allow the first and second stage to separate during flight. That's also where you'll find Falcon 9's 4 hypersonic grid fins, which are at the base of the inner stage, and these help orient the rocket during re-entry. Here in Hawthorne, you can actually have lunch in the cafe while watching the inner stages be made just across the aisle. All right, while we continue to count down here, how are things going, John?
Well, Atticus, things continue to go well. We're mostly watching the weather. We're just over T-minus 2 hours, 36 minutes. We saw the crew ingress into Dragon less than 15 minutes ago. They're currently in their seats. They're going through the process of settling in. They're getting the tablets stowed, their umbilicals hooked up. They're going over the final preparations with the SpaceX closeout team that's both inside and outside of the Dragon spacecraft. Now, with the umbilicals connected and everyone complete with their initial setups, the SpaceX core, we ought to initiate a communication check with the crew. That'll happen somewhere in the next several minutes. We should hear that over the countdown net. Now, once those comm checks are complete and everybody has checked through Dragon, made sure everything underneath the seats of the crew is clear out of the way, and then the ground team backs away, the crew seats will rotate into a launch position, and then the SpaceX ground team will begin the work to close the hatch. That'll include suit leak checks, closing the hatch, doing hatch leak check, working our way through until what eventually becomes about T-minus 1 hour when everything's buttoned up and the ground support team heads out of the pad area and we count down to launch. Speaking of launch, right now the launch vehicle, the Falcon 9, is in a fairly quiet state. You can see on your screen Falcon 9 Dragon, crew access arm in position as we're counting down. Not a lot has been happening with Falcon 9 lately. The SpaceX countdown engineers, they'll be conducting some checks as we hit the 2-hour mark. They'll be going over mostly data that's been collected during checkouts over the past 6 hours as we started the master countdown sequence for the launch vehicle. Now, shortly before the T-minus 1 hour point in the countdown, we're going to evaluate conditions again, determine if we are go to continue towards launch. Now, that launch time is currently scheduled for 7 hours, 38 minutes, 5 seconds universal time, or the very early time of 3:38 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. So right now, it is early morning for the SpaceX ground support team, the launch team, as well as the 4 crew members on board the Dragon spacecraft. Now, also at T-minus 1 hour point, we load a small amount of the RP1 fuel, the kerosene fuel that we use in the Merlin engines. That's a process known as engine bleed-in. The fuel is used to cool the thrust chambers before we burn it in the engine. We want to make sure that those engine walls that have fuel in them prior to engine ignition, which occurs at about T-minus 2 seconds right before liftoff. Propellant loading will begin at T-minus 35 minutes, and then we'll count down to 0, standard Falcon 9 countdown. But before we get into propellant loading, we'll have a couple extra events. One's going to be the removal of the crew access arm. You can see they're stretched out from the fixed service structure. Nice shots from, I believe, drone or helicopter. And you can see the arm extended out, and right now the support team's at the end of it in the white room. We'll retract the arm. As soon as the arm's out of the way, it takes a couple of minutes, then the crew will arm the launch escape system on board the Dragon spacecraft. That enables the Super Draco thrusters, should we need them, both during the last half hour of the countdown.
Dragon SpaceX for umbilical comm checks.
Go, SpaceX.
Dragon, looking for a comm check from Commander, Pilot, MS-1, and MS-2.
Copy that, SpaceX. Commander, comm check.
Pilot, comm check.
MS-1, comm check. MS-2, comm check.
Core has you loud and clear. Umbilical comm checks are complete. Please report when you are ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX Dragon, we're ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies. I will report when we are initiating.
As you just saw and heard, the Polaris Dawn crew members inside Dragon, they've completed their umbilical comm checks. There you see a view looking through the hatch into Dragon. You can see some of the crew inside their white suits, and then the black-garbed SpaceX ground support team getting out of the way right now as we get ready for seat rotations. Now, we heard the comm checks. That's umbilical. The spacecraft is hooked up through electrical lines, And that's how they're getting communications up to the crew and back down to the core, the mission director, the launch director. And that comes through umbilicals in their suits. So they've got those hooked up, they've checked out, and so that's the landlines. That's one of the ways that the SpaceX mission and launch teams and crew can talk to each other. Now, once in space, we obviously don't have a long electrical umbilical or any physical connection to Dragon. So instead, to talk to the crew, we use ground stations and NASA's relay satellites. We'll be checking those out a little bit later in the countdown, and we'll bring that to you when that happens. Right now, the crew waving.
Dragon SpaceX, we are beginning seat rotation.
And here comes seat rotation. So the ground team out of the way, you can see the seats rotating into the launch position. This allows them to take the roughly 3.5 to 4 G's acceleration lying back. That makes it a little easier for the heart to pump blood up to the brain without having to fight the acceleration vector as we head up into space. First stage ride, pretty simple, 3.5 G's. Second stage, about the same, a little bit more, but something that's easily tolerated. And of course, the crew has been trained on it.
Dragon, seats are in the launch position.
There you go.
SpaceX, we show the same.
Their seats have been rotated upright, and they're rotated from the upright position. They're now in that reclined launch position. That'll also let them more easily see the displays, which are right in front of them, be able to access the displays panels, and of course, as we just talked about, tolerate the acceleration as we head to orbit. Now they're about to begin. Next up is initiating suit leak checks. Make sure the spacesuits are in proper working conditions before liftoff. We want to do that. Then we get into side hatch closure. We've got to make sure the seats are good first, because once we do the hatch closure, then we do a leak check of the entire spacecraft through that hatch. With that successful, as I mentioned, we've got some simple launch escape system checks, mostly just cycling through some conditions. The closeout team will then depart from the pad between T-minus 1.5 hours and 1 hour. And as I mentioned before, once we get through that launch propellant load and go for launch pull, we will then retract the crew arm. We'll tell the crew to close and lock their visors. They'll arm the launch escape system, and then we'll move into propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes. The good news right now, T-minus 2 hours, 28 minutes, 35 seconds counting. The view there on the screen from the helicopter showing Falcon 9 and Dragon with the access arm in position. All systems continue to be go. The only thing we're looking at right now is weather. As we get farther into the count, that'll give us a little bit better idea. Currently, the ground winds are looking good. Upper altitude winds are looking good. The big thing we're looking at is just whether or not...
Dragon, you are go for 4.100 section 2, suit leak check preparation.
Copy that, SpaceX, stepping into section 2, 4.100.
We're getting really good comms talking to the crew. It's nice to hear, you know, the crew and the ground talking up to them. But as I mentioned, things are going good right now. Weather's the one thing we're looking at. We get a little farther in the count, we'll see whether or not we have thick clouds, whether or not we have an issue with rain showers. Keep fingers crossed. Around the world is ready to support the flight, but we've just got to get the weather. And like I always say, we all like to talk about the weather. We can't do a thing about it.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, John, and that has been such a tricky element of this mission so far is the weather. And it's not just the weather at Florida that we're looking at, it's also weather for where Dragon will splash down in 5 days' time. We have to be sure that we can bring Polaris Dawn back safely within the weather bounds. And so this time of year is a little challenging in that part of the world. And we're really hoping that we can stick it out in terms of the...
SpaceX Dragon, Terra complete. We're ready for leak checks.
All right, sounds like we're going to be stepping into the suit leak checks here momentarily.
Copy. You are go for section 3, suit leak check.
Copy that, SpaceX. Go for section 3.
So these leak checks, you can see that the crew have brought their visors down into the closed position. At this point in time, we're going to inflate the suits to a certain pressure, hold at that pressure for a couple of minutes, and measure the amount of decay or pressure loss over that period of time. Based on our simulations and our rehearsals, the folks on console know the acceptable amount of pressure for these suits. So they're going to basically take this reading and make sure that everything looks good for all 4 crew members. If we see some sort of pressure decay, it might mean that the helmet isn't fully closed or the zippers are not fully zipped shut. So we do this leak check before closing the hatch, just in case if one of those things occur.
And you can see that the suits are starting to inflate. We saw them very mobile without the inflated suits. You'll see them kind of get a little bit more rigidity in those new EVA suits with the pressure inside of them. But still looks like they can move their arms and hands pretty easily so far.
Yeah. So we can see the closeout crew standing by as we execute this suit leak check. Like I mentioned, if the suit leak check doesn't check out for one of the crew members, then one of the closeout team members will go in to assist, make sure that there's no FOD in the visor closure, or make sure all the zippers are in the right place.
Kate, it also looks like you see a bright light on the left-hand side of the screen. In anticipation of a successful leak check, I think they're starting to do the close-up inspections of the seal around the hatch. In the past, that sometimes you get even something as small as a human hair trapped in there, and you can detect that. So they're starting to get a quick look just to make sure that the cleaning steps where they may want to pay special attention.
Yeah, that's a great point. The hatch that they are now inspecting is the side hatch. This hatch is only going to be used right now and when the crew returns in about 5 days. The hatch that will be utilized for the spacewalk or the extravehicular activity will be the forward hatch, which is the circular hatch located at the top of Dragon. That is the same hatch that is used in order to dock with the International Space Station. So we're very excited for that spacewalk. It's the first time that any commercial entity has done one, and we're really excited to open that hatch.
And Dragon, we see 4 healthy suits.
You might recognize that voice and that face. That is our fellow webcast host, Shiva, doing his real job as
SpaceX 4 good suits.
As a space operations engineer. He is our crew operations and resource engineer on console tonight.
Some good news there. We got some good suit leak checks, which is very exciting. Next up, they will also do some comms checks to make sure that the umbilicals in their suits are working properly and that they can get communications through all the loops that they're using between the crew and all the supporting teams.
We can see the 2 pilots are now starting to use the screen in the Dragon. I think this is actually one of the coolest things about Dragon is the entire interface that pilots the vehicle, if needed, is actually a touchscreen. And this is, quite a big development since some of the older eras of spaceflight, right, where we would see lots of physical knobs and switches and all kinds of different interfaces. But Dragon has really innovated kind of across the board, and that includes things like our user interface here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Atticus. The design teams, when designing not just the suits, but the spacecraft itself.
Dragon SpaceX closeout team has performed their final closeout steps. Please proceed to section 4 for side hatch close and report when you are ready for side hatch closure.
Copy that, SpaceX, stepping into section 4.
Yeah, the design team, wanted to build a vehicle that was robust and safe. And so not only did they want to make it function like a spaceflight vehicle of the future, but also look like one as well. And one glance inside the capsule, and even to this day.
SpaceX Dragon in section 4.100, we're ready for side hatch closure.
Core copies, ready for side hatch closure.
Even to this day, almost 10 years here, I still get so excited and giddy stepping into a Dragon capsule. It's just so otherworldly in itself.
Well, you think about it. If you've been to the Smithsonian or some of the other museums where the Apollo command modules are from the flights in the late 60s, early 70s, there's about 450 switches in there. So 3 people had to know where everything was. But it also meant that if you were on the left side and your switches were yours, it wasn't like the person in the middle or the right could do the same function. Whereas with the touch panel displays, worst case, your screen goes bad, just use the person's next to you, or have, in this case, Jared can take Kid or Kid can take Jared's functions over, and vice versa. So you can just shift capabilities back and forth across the screen. So it's something that we didn't have decades ago, even in the shuttle, where they went to glass cockpits partway through the life, but a lot of mechanical switches.
Yeah, John, that's a great point, that if you have the mechanical switches, it's a lot harder to, make any updates or be even more flexible. It's almost like those switches are just what they are, whereas the display screens, you can kind of make whatever updates you need to, pending the hardware of the displays, but a lot more flexibility.
So we saw some waves happening with the Polaris crew. It looks like the closeout team is preparing. Yep, they're removing the protective paneling that they put around the side hatch to protect the hatch itself during ingress. And it looks like they are removing that now in anticipation of side hatch closure. Now, once we close the side hatch, we will do something very similar as we just saw with the suit leak checks. We will perform a hatch leak check where we inflate the seal around the hatch itself, hold it at a certain pressure for a couple of minutes, and do the same thing, measure that it holds the correct amount of pressure over that period of time. As John mentioned before, the smallest piece of FOD can prevent that successful leak check. So we can see many panels being removed, and this helps to protect that side hatch, and we're going to see them do another inspection before enclosure.
What's exciting about this mission is typically we usually say when that side hatch closes, it's the last time that the Dragon capsule will be opened until they return back to Earth. But in this case, we will be opening up a different hatch during this mission for them to do a EVA spacewalk. And it looks like they are taking some closeout pictures. Again, they do an inspection of that.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check over Tidris.
Dragon has you loud and clear on Tidris.
Core has you loud and clear. Tidris comm checks are complete. Please stand by for comm checks with the DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
Dragon DC on countdown 1, comm check.
Dragon has you loud and clear, DC, how many?
DC loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with MD.
Dragon MD on countdown 1, comm check.
Dragon has you loud and clear, MD, how many?
MD loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
Dragon has you loud and clear, MD, how many?
MD loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD. Dragon LD on countdown 1, comm check.
So the crew does still have a little bit more work. Hatches physically looks like it's closed, but we will not confirm that as closed until they have completed that leak check. And you could also see the crew on your right-hand screen. Although they are patiently waiting for T0, this is their time where they get to maybe relax a little bit. They've had a lot of events And a lot of activity throughout this morning for them. And now they get to, monitor how the vehicle is doing and read through any procedures that they want to on their tablets and prepare for that T0 in just about a couple hours from now.
Great shot of the pad there. You can see Falcon 9 standing tall at Launch Complex 39A. Just about T-minus 2 hours away from liftoff. Of course, we do have our 4 members of Polaris Dawn in the Dragon at the top of the vehicle right now. So far today, everything has gone according to plan. We are on time with all of our procedures.
And there we have it. The crew has taken their last breath of fresh air until they splash down in 5 days. The side hatch is now closed, one of the last major milestones for the crew before liftoff.
As we mentioned before, this is actually Jared's second time flying on Dragon, but for Scott, Sarah, and Anna, this is the first time that they're experiencing what it's like when that hatch closes right before liftoff. And since we can't get their thoughts on what they're feeling right now at the moment, let's hear what the Inspiration4 crew...
Dragon, we are commencing health check for the launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
So that was just a quick update for the crew to let them know that the health checks will begin momentarily and that they can expect just a state change of the computers that are displayed on their touchscreens. Now, Jared has experienced this before. As we mentioned, he was the commander of Inspiration4, which actually flew in this very same Dragon capsule on its last mission, Dragon Resilience. Now, that side hatch of Dragon Resilience is closed, and I'm sure they're all very excited to, as we said before, hurry up and wait. They've got 2 more hours before they get to lift off, and we can't really ask them what they're feeling right now, but we were able to ask Jared's Inspiration4 crew, what they had to say about their experiences flying in this same capsule.
I remember when they closed the hatch because the engineer, Maddie, she's actually now one of my best friends, but one of the last things she said was, bye, have fun in space. And I found out 2 years later that the reason that she said have fun in space was because my little brother had asked her to say that. He wanted to pass on that message to us. And so I loved it in the moment. And then years later when I found out, I was just so excited.
It was just such a special moment because we'd worked so hard and we really took our time. Mm-hmm. And I just remember just feeling how lucky and grateful I was. Go on this journey. For me, being the mission pilot, I was like, in my head, I'm like, don't mess this up.
My orbital crew that's going to be breaking down new barriers to let more people go to space. And so that sense of awe and responsibility kind of swept over me for a little while. And that's important. But at the same time, it's exciting and it's fun. We've trained so long and so hard with some really great people, and now we're here in that moment ready to go.
Falcon. Now, while we wait for those final checkouts to complete, let's take a look.
I think like a lot she'll be watching astronauts someday. So it's thousands, tens of thousands of people are going to go to space someday, and you don't have to be a test pilot. You could be a doctor, a nurse, someone in the healthcare field, someone building the software that runs on the spaceship. And it's just so many possibilities for a future that's going to have, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people in space in the not too distant future. It's just so awesome to think about. With Inspiration 4, I always said it's hard to look at any one piece of the mission and have some extra excitement or enthusiasm because it all matters. It has to go right, every phase of it. Everything we do for months or years leading up to the mission itself and coming home, it all matters. And I'd say that that's no different with this one. If anything, it's even more so because there's so much we're trying to accomplish. But I'm very eager and excited to see that moment when we arrive on orbit and kind of the reaction on the face of my other crewmates who will be going to space for the first time. It's like a really special moment where a lot of emotion comes together when you've arrived on orbit. And they've worked really hard and very deserving for this opportunity, and I'm eager to see it, kind of.
Next up is mission pilot Scott Kidd Poteet, who previously served as mission director for the Inspiration 4 mission.
So my love for aviation and space, it started in the 80s. That's when I grew up. The movies The Right Stuff and the original Top Gun had come out. I was certainly inspired by those movies. But honestly, I struggled as a kid. I was a C and D student. The only reason why I got into college was I was recruited to run. I even struggled in college. I ended up with a degree in outdoor education. But I had an opportunity to go in the back of a KC-135 to watch some refueling F-16s in the air. I was totally inspired, puked the entire time, but I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I served in the Air Force for 20 years flying F-16s. When I retired in 2016, I thought that was the end. Space was never something that I thought I could achieve. Those with advanced degrees. Compartmentalizing aha moments. I think about what it's going to be like for this moment. .500 miles an hour in a very short few minutes. Anything is possible. I never dreamed I would be in the seat. There are plenty of smarter, more intelligent individuals that should be in the seat.
Who also happens to be a member of the SpaceX team.
I was born in California, running a and but along that is bringing back and launching Bob and Doug was so massive. Like, that's the first time we returned launch capability to the US. Like, this is so big, and it was such an immense team effort to get Dragon to the point of flight for the first time. And then for me personally, then taking that and transforming that. When I got a job out of graduate school at NASA, transitioned over to SpaceX, and I have been here ever since. On launch day, I think I will have a lot of things on my mind. I think one piece will be intense focus, remembering all of the work and the learning that we have gone through, thanks to SpaceX, to execute every piece of this mission to the best of our abilities. I will also be thinking about the massive team that it took to get to this moment, and probably honestly feeling a lot of gratitude. And then thirdly, I think I will be trying to memorize the moment. I think it's going to fly by, and I think I will try really hard to memorize the sounds, the feelings, the thoughts, the experiences in the rooms around me so that I can freeze it in my mind and someday look back and recall what it felt like to be there. My name is Anna Menon, and I am one of the mission specialists as well as a medical officer on the Polaris Dawn mission.
The Polaris Dawn crew has not only gone through the same SpaceX training as our NASA astronauts, but they also had to train to perform an EVA, or a spacewalk. For basic SpaceX training, they were trained on everything from orbital mechanics to how to live in microgravity. They also ran through numerous simulations of what the full mission will look like while seated inside of our Dragon training spacecraft.
In addition to ensuring they are familiar with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, the crew went through an extensive training regimen to build their physical endurance and mental toughness, ensuring they are well-rounded and prepared for spaceflight and for the first ever commercial spacewalk. From scuba diving to skydiving, we had an opportunity to talk to the crew about some of the rigorous training that they went through. Here's what they had to say.
The bulk of the training has been rightfully focused on the EVA, or the spacewalks. In a development program, you don't know what you need to train to. Like, how can we run pressurized operations, simulate microgravity, but also have like a simulator that's powered, with hatches to get in and out of, so we don't have to submerge that in a pool.
We looked at a suspension system solution where we can set up a physics model that allows you to pressurize the suit, put on a harness, and then a hoist will lift a suited crew member up. And you can basically use one finger and you press down and your whole body will move up, just like in space.
It allowed us to really put into practice the different piece-by-piece steps that are necessary to complete this operation safely.
One aspect of our training has been scuba diving. The buoyancy allows us to kind of experience a different environment. The lack of communication is a challenge associated with scuba diving.
You rely on alternate forms of communication. You'll use different hand signals to communicate, like I'm okay, you're okay. So I would say scuba diving has a ton of great training lessons that are directly applicable to our spacewalk.
I have to say, I think the max fun here was the skydiving we did at the Air Force Academy. That was some of the best training ever.
When I dropped out of that airplane, sitting in the airplane as I was going up, I felt those nerves, all of that rush of emotions that comes with, recognizing that you are about to do a really high consequence operation.
And you're standing out, leaning into the wind, out of an aircraft, and then you just let go and you fall. It was incredible training, some of the most memorable training we've done.
That's spinning you around and imparting forces on your body that are similar to
Passion is climbing a mountain. Those are all good.
And we've had lows. It's just been a great 2 years of growth. Some of the best times of my life.
We are fortunate today to be joined by former NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins, who has participated in 5 spacewalks and spent a total of 333 days in space. Mike also served as commander for Crew 1, which was SpaceX's first post-certification mission on Dragon, also the second crewed flight for that vehicle, and his second long-duration mission aboard the
videos brings back a lot of great memories from our time, and it was also, Sarah and
You were already a seasoned NASA
First of all, my first mission was on the Russian Soyuz, and so all of the training was actually in Russia, 50 plus years, and so the training program for Whereas on the SpaceX side, we were going through that training for the first time. A lot of times that when the SpaceX gave us was perfect.
It was almost like you guys worked here full time. But I know you were all here mainly for training for your mission. Can you tell us about some of the more rigorous training that our teams put you through?
Yeah, you bring up the opportunity to walk around and all that, and that was pretty special because you get to see the people that have designed, that have built, that are making the vehicle that you get to go into space with, and so that was certainly special. But remember as well, when we got ready for our launch, that's when the pandemic hit, and so that world that we were in got a lot smaller. We were actually kind of confined to the training area, and so it certainly changed a lot. And I have to give a lot of thanks and kudos to SpaceX, to NASA for getting us through that training during that very difficult time. Some of the more rigorous training that we went through, you've got the emergency situation. So you've got the depress scenarios, you've got the fire in the capsule scenarios. And so we had situations where as a crew of 4, we would be in shirt sleeves like this, and then we would have a fire scenario. So you have to then get your emergency mask on, and then you have to get into your suits. And at the same time, you're working procedures on the screens and all of that. And so those activities, trying to get all of that rewarding.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, Mike, out of the 4 of this mission?
Okay, well, hopefully I can get
to 700 kilometers above the Earth. The Polaris Dawn.
Is that similar to how it's done on the ISS?
Yeah, it sure is. In fact, what they're going to go through that period of time where they're actually going to be in the capsule and it's going to be at a lower pressure. We used to do a technique very, very similar on board the International Space Station. We called it a camp out. And so the astronauts would actually go inside the airlock and crew lock and close the hatch, bring it down to a lower pressure, and they would actually sleep overnight in it. The protocol that we use now is a little bit different, where we don't sleep in the airlock the night before, but in the morning we get in there, we do put on a mask, we breathe oxygen, we then close the hatch, bring it down, get into our suits, and continue the pre-breathe there to the point where we're actually doing some exercise. And it's kind of funny, we call it exercise, but if you're ever watching the video and you see us during this pre-breathe, it's a very slow exercise. We're just kind of kicking our legs at about that speed, but that's also helping us get the nitrogen out of our blood and help prevent that decompression sickness. We want to avoid that, and that's why we go through the protocol that we do.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. During the EVA, the Polaris Dawn crew will be wearing our newly designed EVA spacesuits. Building a base on the moon and a city on Mars will require thousands of spacesuits. So the development of this suit and the EVA performed on this mission are important steps towards a scalable design for spacesuits on future long-duration missions. Let's take a look at the making of the suits our crew will be wearing during the first ever commercial spacewalk.
a case where we failed that leak check. And so I thought the suit was very reliable, again, very comfortable and very effective for what we needed it for.
That's awesome feedback. Now, both the IVA suit and the EVA suit, great suits, both of them. And we might be able to immediately notice some differences. Since the original suits were only intended for use inside of Dragon, SpaceX designed this new suit to perform both in and outside the spacecraft. Some of the upgrades include new joint designs that remain soft until pressurized. We saw that a little bit during the suit leak checks. And all this is done while maintaining mobility as well as improved thermal management. Now, Mike, in your opinion, what is the most important feature of an EVA suit?
Yeah, I think that you heard Chris and Maria and Eric talking about that, and that's the mobility. When you're out on the spacewalk itself, you want as much mobility as you can get. And of course, the IVA suits, they're really designed to help keep you alive in the event of emergency and get you back down to Earth. And so from a mobility standpoint, you need just enough to be able to do what you can on the controls with the screens and all of that. And so you don't have to have as much of that mobility. And so with the suits the new suits, the EVA suits that you guys have designed, that just ability that you can't believe how hard just the shoulder rotations and how much you need to use your hands and grip, the difference that it makes when you have the good mobility with it. And I also got to tell you, I really love the HUD that you have inside that gives you a little bit of that information. That I would love to be able to try out that suit.
Yeah, Mike, in addition to the new mobility that the suits have, the new suits also have a feature upgraded helmet with an exterior coating that acts like a sun visor, as well as the team added a camera and heads-up display, like you mentioned, to provide some quick glance information to the astronauts on the status of their suits. Now, our team likes to incorporate feedback from the crews wearing our suits. Yeah. Mike, can you talk a little bit about that process and maybe how you were able to help provide some feedback?
Yeah, it was kind of fun because when we were going through our training, they were also initially designed in the suits. So the feedback that we were giving was kind of like what the Polaris Dawn crew has gone through with the new suits, the new EVA suits, is you're getting actually to help design the suits that all the crews that come after you are going to get to wear. And so that was fantastic, and they were just wonderful about taking our inputs and trying to design the suits that fit us in the best way possible. And then, of course, the other thing that I don't know if a lot of people realize, that each suit is custom made to each astronaut, and so you go through an individual sizing with it. And so not only did we get to help design the suits, but then you get to have that feedback to try and make your suit fit you as well as you can.
Well, it's clear that a lot of work goes into both EVA and IVA suits. For these EVA suits, I am definitely looking forward to seeing them in action in just a few days. We'll be broadcasting that live, that spacewalk as well. But until then, let's take a look at how the actual EVA suit came together.
EVA stands for extravehicular activity, and it's any sort of operation in space where a human is getting out of the spacecraft. So in the case of Polaris Dawn, we're going to be testing the mobility of the suit. We're going to see if the in-space operation matches the training we've done here in Hawthorne. There's really a lot of different things that can happen during an EVA, and this is the first step for Dragon and SpaceX.
When I first started working at SpaceX, I never thought I'd be training a crew to do an EVA. It's brand new, it's so unique, we've never done anything like this before, and so we wanted to make sure we had the best possible training program for this mission.
We want to see if we can train a spacewalk on Earth in a way that's representative of what it feels like in space.
Even though only 2 people are going to be going outside during this first EVA, all 4 crew will be in EVA suits going down to vacuum.
Dragon was always designed to vent to full vacuum, but we've never taken full Dragon capsule down to vacuum, and this will be the first time we do it in space.
We actually put crew into a chamber at Johnson Space Center in Houston and had them live the exact profile that they will experience, and making sure that no one actually experienced decompression sickness.
We have a couple new training assets for Polaris Dawn to train the EVA specifically. The suspension system that we have is situated on top of the platform of our capsule simulator. The lines drop through the hatch. They attach to a single crew member inside the capsule. We can lift them up and get them situated so that they can egress the capsule and perform their tasks at Skywalker, the mobility aid.
The Skywalker, what's amazing to me is a lot of people are going to think it's a metallic structure just bolted to the top of Dragon, but a lot of development effort, testing went into the Skywalker. So we actually used similar technology as we have in the Super Draco chambers to apply a thermal barrier coating to the outside of the Skywalker. That is going to be a really, really amazing mobility aid on the front end of Dragon.
We also developed a sideways simulator, so we flip the hatch on its side.
In the event the hatch fails to close, they can manually close the hatch. We have them do that in a sideways suspension system, so gravity isn't helping them close or helping them open that hatch mechanism.
It's new development for Dragon, it's new development for SpaceX and the industry as a whole. So this is a great example of where Polaris Dawn is forcing the team to innovate in a way that adds safety and reliability to every Dragon mission going forward.
That's this huge challenge for us to go solve, but that's also an opportunity for us to solve the problems that we have to go figure out anyway for our larger goals, like putting people on Mars.
The Polaris Dawn objectives are the first step towards that ultimate flight with humans inside of Starship, which is right on the SpaceX development path that we have towards getting to the moon and Mars.
It's just so cool to see how the EVA is coming together with the EVA suits. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Mike participated in 5 EVAs during his career with NASA. Now, we know you had to go through a lot of training and preparation, but what was your first EVA like?
Yeah, it was not planned. It was one of those scenarios where we had a part on the outside of station had failed, and it turns out this was in December of 2013. So it was right before Christmas on the 21st when we went out the door for the first time to repair this pump module. And there is nothing quite like it when you look out that hatch for the first time at the Earth, 250 miles below you, going by at 17,500 miles an hour. There is a ton of emotions that you're going through that you have to process. So it is an experience like none other.
Yeah, Mike, you talked about doing a repair for your first EVA. What other kinds of activities did you typically perform during your EVAs on the International Space Station?
Yeah, during the course of the five spacewalks that I've done, it ran the gamut. So the pump module that we had to repair on that first one, that was one of those what we call contingency EVAs, and we have a series of those where we've trained for them, but we just don't know if we're going to have to do them. It depends on what happens. And then some of the other ones we are repairing, we replace. That's actually Ike right there on the screen. That's one of my, I guess that was probably my fourth spacewalk right there. But anyway, there we're actually adding a new antenna to the outside of the space station. And so we really ran the gamut, prepping for adding new things, doing repairs, and then also just doing some normal maintenance outside.
So what we're hearing is that in a lot of ways, you had to be a jack of all trades out there, an astronaut, a mechanic, a scientist, handyman, all wrapped into one. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, sure. A jack of all trades with a heck of a view.
Yeah, that must be pretty incredible, Mike. But changing gears a bit here, the Polaris Dawn crew will attempt to fly higher than any Dragon mission to date. At 1,400 kilometers, this would be the highest altitude orbit for a crewed spacecraft, breaking the record set by Gemini 11 and a half a century ago.
Now, looking down on Earth from above, from any altitude, is a sight that few have experienced, and there's even a term for the effect that it can have on someone. The author, Frank White, first coined the term in his book called The Overview Effect, Space Exploration and Human Evolution. Mike, can you talk about your experience when you first saw Earth from space?
Of course, I was in the Soyuz, as we were talking about earlier. And every astronaut, when they first get into space, the experience, the feeling is a little bit different. And so when I first got into space, I had that feeling like I was falling. And so I have to admit that when I looked out the window for the first time and looked down at the Earth, there was a lot going on that I didn't quite have that same feeling of the overview effect. It was kind of pinch yourself. I can't believe I'm here. But then it was kind of like, what's going on with my body and trying to figure all of that out. But fortunately, I had some time to be up in space to experience that. And a lot of times the overview effect, people think of it in terms of it gives you answers. You see how we're all connected on Earth, and that is certainly true. But it also, for me, left me with a lot of questions. When you look down at the Earth and you realize there's so many places around this Earth that you don't know about, you don't understand the people, the culture, the language, and so sometimes it gives you questions as much as it gives you answers.
Yeah, Mike, that must be a feeling, the feeling of falling for your first EVA, but you've done 5 EVAs. So did that feeling ever change? Did you feel more comfortable, or did it ever get routine, after the 4th or 5th time?
Well, yeah, I would never say that it got routine, but you certainly get more comfortable with it. It's always, you still always have those emotions, that intensity. I will tell you that on my last spacewalk, as I was getting ready to come back into the airlock, I just grabbed onto the rail that's around the airlock there, and I just kind of tried to take it all in, and knowing that this was probably the last time that I was going to go outside in space. And so it is certainly a special moment. And as you do it more often, I think it gives you an opportunity to kind of absorb more each time.
What incredible views. Now, after you returned to Earth, after that first time in space, what kind of impact did that experience have on you when you ultimately came back to land?
Yeah, when you get back to Earth, you certainly miss being in space. You miss that experience. You miss the floating. But I would tell you that there's one of the things that it did for me of coming back to Earth was it made me appreciate all of the little things. For example, the first weekend I was back, I was standing outside in my backyard and it was raining. And I was just experiencing the rain, because when you're up in space, there's no weather. It never rains. There's no wind. There's no snow. It's just always the same. And so all of those little things, when you don't have them, that makes up what life is like down here on Earth, it makes you appreciate it that much more.
Wow, Mike, thank you for sharing that very intimate experience that you had when you came back to Earth. It has been such an honor to have you with us today, but we will see you back here again for our live EVA coverage in just a few days.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for letting me be a part of this, and go Polaris Dawn.
Awesome, Mike. See you in just a couple of days. Now, for those of us who have not experienced the overview effect firsthand, here's a little more on the phenomenon itself.
The overview effect is that sensation or that feeling that you get when you see our whole world from the perspective of being outside of it.
It ranges the whole spectrum from like how delicate the Earth may appear because, it's only this thin blue line that separates this habitable atmosphere of our home planet to, the vacuum of space.
It's hard to comprehend what the impact is going to be when I first see Earth from space. It just reminds us of how fragile our planet is. One of my roles on this crew is to shoot as much footage as we possibly can so we can bring it back and share it with the world.
The big picture awareness that you gain from that sort of perspective when you were, journeying amongst the stars and see our entire planet as we know it there outside of your window, and kind of the philosophical and the many different emotions that it provokes inside of you when you see it that way.
We have barely begun our journey to explore the worlds around us. And that hit me right when I saw the moon rise around Earth and saying, like, come on, it's been 50 years. We got to get back there, and we got to get to Mars, and we got to figure out how to get out of our own solar system and try and figure out what this is all about.
There's so much incredible footage that crew members have taken from space and that you see from satellites. I think it's one of the things I'm looking forward to most on the mission is getting to see the Earth from that perspective. I can't wait to share what that experience is, but I guess I'll have to let you know once I get back.
In addition to the science and supplies going up on the Polaris Dawn mission, the crew is also taking along some personal items for their 5-day trip around planet Earth. We caught up with the crew during training to get a little more insight on what each of them are planning to take to space.
What am I going to bring to space? I've thought long and hard about this one.
A book that I co-authored about a mama dragon that ends up training and flying to space.
My dad's necklace, jewelry for my wife, watches. I have a Thunderbird watch and a fighter weapons school watch.
I don't know, it's one of my takeaways after Inspiration 4 was it's kind of like camping, you brought too much. One of my actual debrief points was bring less.
When I got married to my husband, we went to the store and picked up a Cat in the Hat book. For our entire wedding, all of the ceremony was taped in this book, all of our vows were taped in the book, and then it got passed around and all the speeches got added to the book. And so it's just a very fun collection of very special memories captured in a very endearing Cat in the Hat book.
I'm going to bring this big hunk of metal that will go higher than anyone has ever flown in Earth orbit.
I'd love to be able to have some sort of a memorabilia for everyone who contributes to this, of which it's pretty hard because there's 10,000 plus SpaceXers. I guess I wish I could bring something for everyone who's made a difference in this program.
I will, in particular, get to read this story from space to my kids here on Earth, as well as some of the brave kids of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And I think that connection moment while I'm up there floating in space is something I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to have.
And we actually have something super cool here with us, a copy of Kisses from Space, just like the one that the Polaris Dawn crew will have flying with them. Anna actually penned this book as a love letter to her kids. And you can actually get one for yourself from major publishers, as well as from penguinrandomhouse.com. The proceeds from this book will benefit St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And it's just a gorgeous illustration and just such a lovely story.
Yeah, my niece is literally going to love this book. I can't wait to get a copy and read it to her.
Yeah, I hope Anna is willing to sign copies of it because I'm sure she's going to get flooded with requests when she comes back down to Earth.
Yeah, definitely. That will be so awesome.
Yeah. So with that, let's get a status update from John Innsbrucker, who's been listening in on the countdown.
Well, the clock is just inside T-minus 1 hour and 16 minutes, and we're continuing to count down to the first launch opportunity. Now, the Polaris Dawn crew, they are sealed in the Dragon spacecraft. We've done the comp checks, suit leak checks. They were successful. The side hatch is closed. It passed its leak check. And at T-minus 90 minutes, the ground support team has left the pad. So it's just the 4 crew members on top of Falcon 9 inside of 39A. Now, currently, the launch teams are not working any significant issues on Falcon or Dragon. The biggest thing we're watching right now is the weather. We're expecting another update in about 15 minutes. As mentioned earlier, we are red for cumulus clouds. The good news is the boundary layer is dissipating, and we are fingers crossed that the weather will stay more than 10 nautical miles away and give us a chance to launch right on time. Other weather, everything else is looking good. The ground winds are good. The upper altitude winds, we're releasing balloons that go up to 90,000 feet. That gives us structural information, wind speed, wind shear information. Nothing unusual that we're seeing there. So pretty much just fingers crossed, the weather officer will give us good news coming up at about the T-minus 1 hour evaluation point. So with that, Kate, we're just crossing our fingers for the weather.
Thanks so much, John. Love to hear the good news about the progress, and we will keep our fingers crossed about the weather conditions. Now, Polaris Dawn is the first of 3 planned missions in the Polaris program that will conduct extensive research, scientific research, to expand our knowledge of humans adapting, living, and working in space. Much of this research is also intended to improve life here on Earth.
And like all science and research, it begins with collecting tons of data, and that process started well before today. Let's take a look.
We are in the Houston SpaceX office today. We are here for our what we call L-30 or launch minus 30 days data collection for all of the research that we're doing on our mission. We have about 40 experiments, and a number of those required data collection pretty close to launch date. And so we are doing all of that data collection today, as well as doing some refresher training just to make sure we're really sharp on all of our procedures when we go to flight.
There's a lot of steps for each one of these science experiments. They're beneficial for not only improving and enhancing healthcare here on Earth, but it helps us continue this progression with space exploration.
What Kid and Anna are doing with the endoscope up through the nose and looking down at the vocal cords, I mean, that is not something easy to perform, in a hospital environment, let alone in space. They certainly stand to learn a lot from it. Reestablishing someone's airway, that's worthwhile to know if we're going to Mars someday. But I think that's a tough one to perform in space. But you got two really highly motivated individuals that are going to try and conquer it.
In space, there's inflammation. We don't have the impact of 1G pulling on that fluid. So we need to better understand what that inflammation looks like. And once we have a better understanding, we can develop the procedures and the equipment necessary to handle any type of triage situation.
When we stepped into this virtual reality scenario, I think Kid and I liked it a lot because they're flying a spacecraft on Mars to kind of gather like hand-eye coordination, motor skills, some cognitive abilities now, and then they're going to compare it to post-flight as opposed to whether or not we can successfully land on Mars.
One of the unique things of our missions, they're 3 to 5 days length. You maybe can't study the super long duration things, but what you can study is what happens immediately when you get up there and how soon these things start to take place. So this big problem in the astronaut community is called SANS, and it's where the astronaut's eyesight and ocular health start to degrade over time. So they will be wearing a contact that actually makes them look like a cyborg. It has little coils that can measure the interocular pressure, and then we can start testing countermeasures that might actually be able to prevent some of those negative effects.
We are doing an experiment called GVS disorientation, and this experiment, we wear a set of electrodes that sends electricity essentially through our brain between our inner ears and stimulates a disorientation and an imbalance to train astronauts' adaptation to different G environments and hope to quicken that readaptation. One of the things that we're doing with ultrasound is we are going to be collecting imagery of our veins and identifying whether there's actually bubbles forming when we are changing cabin pressure. It's very possible that nitrogen will bubble out into our blood. If we see bubbles, it will be completely normal and okay if we do see bubbles, but we are hoping to capture that on ultrasound.
In order for us to become multiplanetary, we've got to overcome some of these challenges associated with space exploration on longer duration missions. What we gather on orbit in a zero-G environment, in a vacuum, will help us continue this cause in furthering space exploration.
As the countdown continues to lift off, we'd like to introduce Dr. Samantha Weeks, Science and Research Director for the Polaris program. Dr. Weeks, call sign Combo, is a retired United States Air Force colonel with over 2,200 hours flying fighter jets, including 105 combat hours. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Now, she spent the last 2.5 decades focusing on human performance in aviation, and now she's overseeing science and research for the entire Polaris program, starting with the Polaris Dawn mission. Super cool. Now, how did you get involved with the Polaris program?
Well, I worked for Jared, and Jared actually worked for me when I was still in the Air Force, and he had Draken International. And he came to me in 2021 and told me about the Polaris program and asked me to be part of it as a mission director for science and research. And I was an aerospace physiology major at the Air Force Academy. Wanted to go fly first, but always loved medicine. And so this was a natural fit. And I jumped at the opportunity when he asked me to be a part of this great, amazing mission.
That's so cool to see how you guys connected the dots. I'm sure there was a lot of things that went into, the research portfolio that you guys put together. Can you explain how the scientific research portfolio all came together?
Absolutely. Initially, when the mission was announced in February of 2022, we had some experiments that were ready to go, but we wanted to pack as much science and research into the 5 days that the crew will be up as humanly possible. So we did a call for research proposal and projects and worked very closely with SpaceX to gather the best and the most feasible that were out there. And we have a complement of 36 different experiments with 31 partner institutions from across the globe going up with the Polaris Dawn crew tonight.
Wow. It sounds like there was a lot of opportunity to participate. A lot of work went into that. Can you maybe share a little bit about some of the planned experiments?
Yeah, you bet. You saw the crew and Marissa talk about a few of the experiments that they'll be doing while they're up in space. But another one is from the University of Dartmouth and will focus on bone loss. We know that without gravity on our skeleton, our bones don't need as much calcium, so they begin to leach calcium into our bloodstream, which poses a risk to develop kidney stones. And from what I hear, nobody wants one of those, especially in space. So this will help us understand how early onset begins and maybe mitigate that risk of developing kidney stones as we go deeper into space, back to the moon, to Mars, and trying to make life multiplanetary. Another one focusing on bone health comes from the University of Calgary, and they're going to be trying to identify very early signs of bone loss and looking for any type of structural, physiological changes that occur in this relatively short 5-day mission so that we can once again begin to understand how early bone health and bone loss begins to take hold in an astronaut.
Yeah, that sounds like very important research for spaceflight. And you talked about 36 different research experiments, but I really want to know, I'm going to put you on the spot, what is like the one or two experiments that's like very near and dear to you and the Polaris Dawn crew?
Well, I went to the Air Force Academy, and the Air Force Academy has an experiment going up, and it's called SOFIA, which is Space-Optimized Plant Habitat in Array. And it focuses on the growth response of plant physiology in microgravity as well as in different orbital environments and exposure to different and varying magnetic fields. And that will help us understand potentially root growth and crop production in space. And it's kind of funny because I hated botany at the Air Force Academy, but that's what's going on.
Irony.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an honor to have you part of our broadcast, and we look forward to seeing all of these research opportunities come together throughout the mission.
Thanks for having me here tonight.
Thank you. To date, Dragon has carried more than 1,000 research experiments to and from low Earth orbit and the International Space Station since 2012. Whether it's returning time-sensitive experiments from the International Space Station or bringing back science performed inside the Dragon spacecraft while in orbit, Dragon safely returns at home.
While docked with the International Space Station, Dragon can also act as a lab, providing extra room for astronauts to perform their work. And when the space station is fully booked, Dragon also serves as an extra bedroom when needed.
Actually, NASA astronaut Michael Hopkins, who joined us earlier, slept inside of Dragon during his entire 6-month stay aboard the station.
Dragon can also serve as a lab while orbiting Earth, as I mentioned. In fact, the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021, during that mission, the crew conducted research while traveling weightless at over 17,000 miles per hour. You can see a photo of the crew there on your screen while they were on orbit. And what you see there is also what the Polaris Dawn crew will be doing over the next 5 days in their mission. Dragon's cargo capacity can be allocated for both crew essentials as well as scientific equipment dedicated to microgravity research and experiments.
Yes, in fact, SpaceX is currently accepting proposals for research studies and experiments to fly on Dragon. This could be research to understand mental and physical impacts while on
SpaceX,
orbit.
We will be cycling the orbit tank isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
started at SpaceX.
Just heard some comms from the core to the crew, letting them know that they will be cycling some air to equalize inside of the cabin. So this could be research to understand mental and physical impacts while on orbit, exploring how to improve training, physical fitness, and mental well-being, or advancing medical care with the exploration of just-in-time training and tools. Now, the selected research study groups will have access to SpaceX's crewed Dragon missions, opening up opportunities for researchers that
research program. Visit spacex.com/human spaceflight/research. Now, as we mentioned at the start of the show, there are a number of firsts that are going to occur on this mission. The first commercial spacewalk and possibly reaching the highest Earth orbit ever flown for a crewed spacecraft, which will break the altitude record set by Gemini 11, which happened half a century ago, which is wild.
Yeah, the Polaris Dawn crew will also be the first to attempt to use the Starlink network in orbit. Dragon is carrying what we are calling a Starlink plug-and-placer. Inside Dragon is a router connected to a user terminal in Dragon's trunk. This terminal will be linked to the new plug-and-placer device that is mounted on board.
All of this will be responsible for establishing and maintaining a laser communications link with Starlink satellites, which will be in orbit about 200 kilometers below Dragon. Using this hardware, Dragon will attempt to talk to Starlink the same way Starlink satellites talk between themselves, with lasers. No one has ever flown a laser communication system on a human-rated spacecraft before, so there is a lot to be learned here. If this works, plug-and-placer could provide the first high-speed internet experience for people traveling in space.
This technology will also help here on Earth by facilitating healthcare access and connectivity to underserved communities around the world. The Polaris program is donating Starlink to St. Jude Global Partners in 5 countries. Strong, reliable internet will help support the St. Jude Global mission by providing partners greater access to online medical conferencing, case and imaging sharing, and diagnostic assistance. Hospitals and foundations that are part of the pilot program will be able to provide better care to patients thanks to high-speed, low-latency broadband internet.
The first countries selected to receive Starlink include the Philippines, Brazil, Chile, Peru, and Mozambique. The Polaris team is also donating Starlink to 100 schools in Chile and Brazil, striving to increase internet connectivity, which can improve education and telemedicine efforts for communities in need. The Polaris Dawn crew had a chance to hear from students in Chile after Starlink was installed.
¿Por qué los hombres van al espacio?
It's so important to go to space because there is so much of it and we know so little about it. How many of you would like to be an astronaut someday? There we go.
How many of you want to go with us on our mission?
They all want to go.
Starlink is also enabling the rapid development of SpaceX's Starship vehicle, which just completed its 4th flight test in June. Starlink on Starship once again enabled real-time telemetry and live high-definition video throughout every phase of entry, with external cameras providing views all the way to the flight's conclusion. Down at Starbase, Texas, we're continuing to build, test, and fly the world's most powerful launch vehicle ever developed.
SpaceX's ultimate goal is to make life multiplanetary, and Starship is the vehicle that will get us there. Starship is a fully reusable transportation system designed to carry a massive amount of cargo and large numbers of people to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Starship will be capable of carrying up to 200 metric tons to orbit and up to 100 passengers.
Now, we're still in the testing phase, but major milestones like flying at a high cadence, full system reuse, and on-orbit refilling are key priorities. We're also building a second Starbase launch tower to further increase Starship's flight opportunities. This will also allow for continuous upgrades to the towers while continuing to launch. Also in testing, our engineers are proving out all systems necessary to make a trip to the Moon possible, such as propulsion, life support, and even the elevator that will take the crew and cargo from the Starship hatch opening down to the lunar surface.
In partnership with NASA, Starship will put the first Artemis astronauts on the moon.
SpaceX for a weather update.
Go, SpaceX.
Dragon, we are tracking some rain near the pad and still monitoring the cumulus cloud condition from earlier. We're going to be taking the weather decision down to T-minus 50 minutes, and in the meantime, evaluating system readiness for LES arm. With that, we're going to have you start section 5 of 4.100 and report when you are go for launch.
All right, copy that, SpaceX. For weather, you're tracking rain, and you're going to take this down to a T-minus 50-minute mark while you evaluate for LES arming. We are go to step into section 5 for LES arming preparation.
That's a good read back, Dragon.
All right, so quick update there for our Polaris crew, just continuing to monitor the weather, as we've been saying all evening. Unfortunately, just one of those things that we can't control. Now, thinking back to the crew that will be involved with the HLS program, the Starship vehicle will perform one uncrewed demonstration flight before that Artemis 3 mission, which will be the first human surface expedition of the moon since 1972. With the ability to deliver cargo and people to the lunar surface, we'll be ready to help humanity build a sustainable presence on the moon and learn how to live off-world before the next step to Mars.
SpaceX Dragon in section 5. Crews go for launch.
Copy. Crew's ready for launch. Thanks.
And great news there. Crew just confirming that they are go for launch while we monitor weather for T0 tonight. When the time comes for humans to explore the moon and beyond, they'll have to take everything with them for a surface mission. Building bases or even cities will require huge amounts of cargo and eventually crew, and that's where Starship comes in.
This year is shaping up to be a busy one for Starship. As we mentioned, we recently completed the flight test 4 for Starship. That was on June 6th from Starbase, as you can see there on your screen. Super Heavy booster lifting off successfully there and completed a full duration ascent burn.
Starship executed another successful hot stage separation, powering down all but 3 of Super Heavy's Raptor engines and successfully igniting the 6-second stage Raptor engines before separating the vehicles. Following separation, the Super Heavy booster successfully completed its flip maneuver and boost back burn to send it towards the splashdown zone.
The booster's flight ended with a landing burn, so exciting, and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico 7 minutes and 24 seconds into the flight. The landing was caught by both the onboard camera, as you can see there, as well as one of SpaceX's marine buoys.
Meanwhile, Starship's 6-second stage Raptor engine successfully powered the vehicle to space and placed it on the planned trajectory for coast. Starship made a control entry, successfully making it through the phases of peak heating and maximum aerodynamic pressure, demonstrating the ability to control the vehicle using its flaps while descending through the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds.
Speaking of the flaps, those incredible flaps, Starship provided live video of those flaps during that re-entry phase via SpaceX's Starlink satellites. And it provided, as you saw, the most spectacular views as we all cheered on the little flap that could as it clung on for dear, dear life. Now, those Starlink-enabled views really just keep on giving.
Flight 4 ended with the Starship igniting its 3 center Raptor engines and executing the first flip maneuver and landing burn since our high-altitude test campaign, followed by a soft splashdown of the ship in the Indian Ocean about an hour and 6 minutes after launch. Now, the 4th flight of Starship made major strides to bring us closer to a rapidly reusable future. Its accomplishments will provide data to drive improvements as we continue to rapidly develop Starship into a fully reusable transportation system.
Now, coming up on Flight 5, which is the next flight, we're getting ready to attempt the first ever tower catch of a booster, which you can see that tower there on your screen. Returning the booster after a launch is a core capability to Starship becoming rapidly and reliably reusable.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty exciting. And as of August 21st, both towers were fully stacked, which is pretty exciting to see. So stay tuned for exciting updates as we get closer to this next launch. And as always, excitement is guaranteed.
Now, for those that recently joined us, as you can see on the clock, we're about T-minus 53 and a half minutes away from liftoff. We did hear from the crew operations and resource engineer that we are awaiting a final weather update at T-minus 50. That's 50 minutes, so in just 3 minutes from now. Weather has been a watch item all evening, in fact, for like the last 2 weeks. And we are hoping that some unfortunate weather close to the pad will dissipate in time. There is a couple of rules that we're watching, trying to hope that that weather clears out from the 10 nanometer range. So we are standing by for that final update from the launch weather officer. But as you can see on your screen, Polaris Dawn crew is pretty comfy in their suits and in their seats.
Yeah, they are patiently waiting. They did give the go that they are ready for launch if we do proceed to T0. And again, we do have a couple opportunities for T0 if weather does not look good for the initial T0 that we're planning for right now.
Yeah, that's right. But we are standing by, like we said before, just a couple minutes for that final update. Basically a go, no-go update from our weather officer. It's a little deceiving because this view here, these inky black skies, you can't really tell what the weather is or isn't around the pad. Of course, pad 39A here on your camera. And if I were Jared in the capsule, right, hearing that, you're in the capsule, you've done a successful suit leak check, you've done a successful side hatch leak check and closure, and he has flown in this capsule once before. This is Dragon Resilience. This is, of course, the capsule that took the Inspiration 4 mission on its, couple-day mission around planet Earth. And, if I were Jared, I would be really impatient at this point and just like...
Yeah, we're listening in right now. The launch team is talking to the launch weather officer. They're trying to look in the crystal ball and figure out, do we think things may clear up in 51 minutes enough, keep the clouds, everything away more than 10 nautical miles from the pad? Or should we go to the second T0, which is at 9 hours, 23 minutes universal time, just under 100-minute delay if we have to wait? They're asking the LO questions. We have the propellant load and launch go-no-go poll coming up at 50 minutes, or at 45 minutes. So everything's coming together right now. So we're going to listen in just a little bit more and see whether or not we roll the dice and proceed to zero, hoping that the little cells that are popping up dissipate in 20 to 30 minutes and give us a clear launch to space, or if we decide we're going to delay a bit.
Yeah, we knew going into the countdown today that the probability of violation of the launch weather rules was 60%, i.e. only 40% favorable. So we knew that there was a chance here, but in the event that, the clouds parted, or rather just stayed away out of those 10 nautical miles, we wanted to try and take advantage of the opportunity if it presents itself. So we're keeping our fingers crossed and really hoping for that opportunity. And of course, we're talking about launch weather, but something that we've been looking at for the last couple of weeks is not only the launch weather, but also the booster downrange recovery weather, as well as the ascent phase abort scenario weather patterns. Want to make sure that if Dragon, for some reason, has to activate the launch escape system during the ascent phase, that all that weather along that corridor is clear, and the weather 5 days from now to make sure that there is a viable path for safe crew return when their mission is done. So It's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot to look out for. And again, we are trying to make this call prior to propellant loading starting on the vehicles. That will be important for us to be able to hold if we decide to go to the additional T0 opportunities that we have. We'd like to make that call before we start loading propellant.
Exactly. So we're now under T-minus 48 minutes. We are standing by for the final update from the launch weather officer. We're hoping that we get the okay to proceed into propellant load. This is such a great view. It reminds me of Tron, really. This view with the crew access arm illuminated from the interior. I love daytime launches, but there is something even more futuristic about the nighttime launches.
Operators proceed with 18.85, propellant load, go, no go pull.
And just a quick note, launch director telling the team to proceed with the go, no go pull. Car's going to talk to crew now.
Dragon SpaceX for weather update.
Go SpaceX.
Dragon, we're still watching weather. It seems that the T01 opportunity is going to have the best chance of getting us to a launch today. So we're going to be pressing into the propellant load go, no go pull.
And copy that, SpaceX. And just for good readback, we are presently no-go for weather, but we are stepping into the prop load pull.
And stand by, Dragon. We're just confirming.
Yeah, we're coming up on T-minus 46 minutes. They've made a determination to continue on, betting that the weather will be go in 46 minutes from now. We heard Core bring it up with the crew briefly. We're waiting now for the directions from the launch director to the launch team for the readiness for propellant load and launch pull. Currently, they are continuing to talk with the launch weather officer, but it looks like if you look at the upcoming T0 or the next one in about 100 minutes, it's about an equal opportunity. So we're going to move into propellant load, it appears. Now, right now, the launch director should be polling electronically.
For awareness, we got one more radar scan. We're evaluating this radar scan.
7 members.
We'll get back here.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're standing by.
Yeah, there's some discussion on the WeatherNet about a cell to the northwest and whether or not it's exceeding constraints. Electronic poll has been completed if we do continue with the countdown.
Dragon SpaceX, we're getting meteorological input that we should waive this attempt given the last radar scan. So we're going to pause the clock here and move to our second T0.
Copy that, SpaceX, and we are standing by for the second T0.
Okay, we're T-minus 44 minutes and 30 seconds, and we have paused the clock for the moment.
We
got a last-minute update one cell right at around the 10 nautical mile border had popped up on the radar returns. We have to get all the weather clear within 10 nautical miles of the launch pad in order to be able to launch Falcon 9 with the crew on the Dragon.
And launch control.
The weather
LD
was
on countdown
iffy.
one,
If it would
please
clear
set the
in
T-spot
time
to
for the original T0.
092349 UTC. And LD, that's 09:23:49 UTC. That is correct.
Launch director confirming the planned new T0, 09:23:49, I believe, universal time. That would be at 5:23 a.m. on pad 39A.
And the clock is counting to 09:23:49 UTC.
As you can see on the webcast screen now.
Dragon SpaceX launch T time has been moved to 09:23:49 Zulu. Stand by for seat rotation, after which you will remain in the capsule with the side hatch closed. Please confirm when you are ready for seat rotation.
Copy that, SpaceX. New T0 092349, and we'll get back to you on that seat rotation.
We just heard the core.
SpaceX Dragon, we're ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies. We will report when initiating.
Okay, it sounds like we are now in the middle of seat rotation. With the delay, you see on the screen, we're T-minus 2 hours, 27 minutes. There's a view inside the capsule. They're working on their tablets, getting their updated clock. Okay. Updating for those who are watching right now. We got down to
SpaceX
just
is initiating seat rotation.
a lot going on here. Seat rotation being initiated. We ought to see that on our screen coming up. And seat movement begins. That'll make it a little easier on the crew as we wait for the launch window opportunity number 2 to arrive. They'll be back into a more regular seated posture, and then we'll get back through seat rotation a little bit later on. But right now, inside 2.5 hours now to the planned T0. As we mentioned, as we started the webcast, we had 3 opportunities. We've had to wait.
Seats are in the upright position.
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same.
We had to wave off the first opportunity just as we got inside T-minus 45 minutes. The weather forecast was iffy at best, and we have elected to go for the second of the 3 T0 opportunities. Next launch opportunity at 9:23:49 Universal Time. We'll have a third opportunity if need be at 11 hours 50 minutes Universal Time. We don't know what the weather forecast is. It's fairly dynamic as a tropical boundary layer has come ashore in Florida. Now, just before we had the hold, the launch chief engineer had pulled both the Dragon and Falcon 9 teams, verifying that if we were to hold at this point in the count, just at T-minus 45 minutes before we began propellant load, that both the Dragon and the Falcon teams were in a good position to hold the clock and then recycle back to the T-minus 2 hours and 25 minutes that you see on the screen now. So we had not taken any irreversible steps. In fact, as you just saw, the crew rotation back to a vertical position, give them a little more comfort. They will remain inside the Dragon capsule as we continue to count down. Everything is good for Dragon, as well as for the Falcon 9 team. We had not begun loading propellant into the Falcon 9, and so we were able to hold the clock and wait till we get closer, and then we can resume the final checks and the propellant load of Falcon 9. Hopefully, fingers crossed, for a launch coming up in 2 hours and 24 minutes. And of course, we'll be continuing to watch the weather throughout the early morning in Florida. As I mentioned just a moment ago, it is dynamic conditions. The concerns we had were not winds. It was twofold. A shower was passing over the launch pad that was just had rain in the ascent trajectory, but we expected the rain shower to dissipate. The bigger problem is there are frontal boundaries north and south of the launch site, and we were then seeing cells popping up, and that made us a little concerned that they may still be around at T0, and we would then have had to scrub for the day. So the good news is we are still counting down for launch. We're going to wait 2 hours and change and see how things go. And with that, Kate, Atticus, Jesse, we got close.
So close.
But we're still here with another chance.
Yeah, but we're not out of the fight yet. Obviously, we would have preferred for weather to cooperate, but the safety of the crew is the top priority. So we're unfortunately going to have to wait around just a little bit longer.
SpaceX Dragon for T0 clock.
Go, Dragon.
Yeah, SpaceX, just wondering when we should expect a reset on our T0 clock.
That's in work, Dragon. I'll let you know when we have that updated.
Yeah, Core just working through some housekeeping
And cut that, SpaceX.
with the Dragon displays.
Yeah, so we're obviously sad we don't get to go to space in 50 minutes like we were hoping, but I'm sure there's nobody more disappointed than the crew on board. But let's take this opportunity to learn a bit more about them. The Polaris Dawn mission has many first-time objectives, so the Polaris program, of course, chose a crew of experts who know each other well and have a foundation of trust that they can build upon as they undertake the challenges of this mission. So we've seen him before on Inspiration 4, Mission Commander Jared Isaacman. As I mentioned, he was the commander of Inspiration 4, the world's first all-civilian mission to space. Jared holds several world records, including 2 speed-around-the-world flights in 2008 and 2009 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He has flown in over 100 air shows as part of the Black Diamond Jet Team, dedicating every performance to charitable causes. In 2011, Jared co-founded what would become the world's largest private air force, Draken International, and that trains pilots for the U.S. Armed Forces. In addition to his role as CEO of Shift4, Jared is an accomplished pilot and astronaut with over 7,000 flight hours. Here's a little bit more about Jared.
I think like a lot of kids dreamed of becoming an astronaut since kindergarten. I still remember checking out just big color picture books of the early days of the space shuttle. I remember talking to my kindergarten teacher, telling her that someday I was going to go to space. And I still remember she said to me that she'll be watching in her rocking chair. And then I think you just build on it with like just awesome movies like, The Right Stuff and Top Gun, the original, and Space Camp, the movie, for sure. All you had to do is go to space camp and a robot would accidentally send you into space. If you are thinking about or dreaming about being an astronaut someday, it is totally possible. You do not have to be one of the lucky few struck by lightning. Organizations like SpaceX and others in commercial space are making it possible where hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people are going to go to space someday, and you don't have to be a test pilot You could be a doctor, a nurse, someone in the healthcare field, someone building the software that runs on the spaceship. And it's just so many possibilities for a future that's going to have, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people in space in the not too distant future. It's just so awesome to think about. With Inspiration 4, I always said it's hard to look at any one piece of the mission and have some extra excitement or enthusiasm, because it all matters. It has to go right, every phase of it. Everything we do for months or years leading up to the mission itself and coming home, it all matters. And I'd say that's no different with this one. If anything, it's even more so, because there's so much we're trying to accomplish. But I'm very eager and excited to see that moment when we arrive on orbit, and kind of the reaction on the face of my other crewmates who will be going to space for the first time. It's like a really special moment where a lot of emotion comes together when you've arrived on orbit. And they've worked really hard and very deserving for this opportunity, and I'm eager to see it, kind of firsthand. My name is Jared Isaacman, and I'm the commander of Polaris Dawn.
Mission pilot Scott Poteet served as the mission director of Inspiration 4, and he goes by his call sign, Kid. A retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, Kid served for 20 years in roles that included commander of the 64th Aggressor Squadron, Thunderbird No. 4 demonstration pilot, U.S. Air Force Weapons School graduate, operational test and evaluation pilot, and flight examiner. Kid is a command pilot with over 3,200 flying hours and has logged over 400 hours of combat time. Following his Air Force career, Kid served in various roles, including VP of Strategy at Shift4. Let's hear from our mission pilot himself, Scott Kid Poteet.
So my love for aviation and space, it started in the 80s. That's when I grew up. The movies The Right Stuff and the original Top Gun had come out. I was certainly inspired by those movies. But honestly, I struggled as a kid. I was a C and D student. The only reason why I got into college was I was recruited to run. I even struggled in college. I ended up with a degree in outdoor education. But I had an opportunity to go in the back of a KC-135 to watch some refueling F-16s in the air. I was totally inspired, puked the entire time, but I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I served in the Air Force for 20 years flying F-16s. When I retired in 2016, I thought that was the end. Space was never something that I thought I could achieve based on my academic background. Traditionally in the 80s with the shuttle program, it was astrophysicists, engineers, test pilots, those with advanced degrees. There are moments where you were like, oh my gosh, this is real, this is happening. And it brings me back to my Air Force and fighter pilot experience in combat. Compartmentalizing what's going on, being very acute to every little detail. Throughout this entire training process, we have these aha moments. And when I have these aha moments, I think about what it's going to be like when it is liftoff. And I think I will be in that very intense moment of being aware of all the details around me, all the senses, watching all the parameters of the rocket, staying very focused on the mission. I'm not nervous. I'm intensely excited for this moment. I'm a fighter pilot, so I enjoy the thrills of thrust and the acceleration that we're going to experience, going from 0 miles an hour up to 17,500 miles an hour in a very short few minutes. Anything is possible. I never dreamed I'd be in the seat. There are plenty smarter, more intelligent individuals that should be in the seat, but I've been blessed to have this opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of it. My name is Scott Kid Poteet. I'm the mission pilot for Polaris Dawn.
Mission Specialist Sarah Cooper Gillis is a lead space operations engineer at SpaceX, responsible for overseeing the company's astronaut training program. She helped prepare NASA astronauts for the Demo 2 and Crew 1 missions, and most recently directly trained the Inspiration4 astronauts. Sarah is an experienced mission control operator who has supported real-time operations for Dragon's cargo resupply missions to and from the International Space Station as a navigation officer and as a crew communicator for Dragon's human spaceflight missions. In 2015, while studying at the University of Colorado Boulder, Sarah started an internship at SpaceX and then moved into the astronaut training program full-time after graduation. Here's a bit more about Sarah.
So I cannot technically claim that I am a Boulder, Colorado native as much as I would love to. I was born in California, but I moved to Boulder when I was about 2 or 3 months old. And that's where I went to college as well. I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder and then eventually started as an intern at SpaceX. I would say I didn't always dream of going to space. I think my interest really changed in high school, and I thought human spaceflight was fascinating. I think I heard of the concept of this future job of running a space hotel, and I was like, wow, that's wild and cool. If that can be the future, that's something that I would like to think about. So I just started looking and pursuing human spaceflight topics and doing things that really interested me, because I didn't think going to space was necessarily a possible outcome. But along that journey, got to help with some really cool things, and that obviously led to going to space today. One of the professional accomplishments that I'm most proud of is bringing back and launching Bob and Doug was so massive. That's the first time we returned launch capability to the US. This is so big, and it was such an immense team effort to get Dragon to the point of flight for the first time. And then for me personally, then taking that and transforming that and growing our training program to support the first all-civilian crew with Inspiration4. Those 2 missions certainly stand out for me. When I sit in the spacecraft, I think more than anything, what is going to go through my mind is just seeing all of the components that came together to make this machine, and all of the people that made those components and tested those components, being supported by the thousands of people at SpaceX that are making this possible and dedicating their lives to safely flying people to space and back. My name is Sarah Gillis, and I am a mission specialist on the Polaris Dawn mission.
And rounding out the Polaris Dawn crew, mission specialist and medical officer Anna Walker-Menon, who also serves as a lead space operations engineer at SpaceX, where she manages the development of crew operations and works in mission control as both a mission director and crew communicator. During her time at SpaceX, Anna has led the implementation of Dragon's crew capabilities and developed critical operational responses to vehicle emergencies. Prior to SpaceX, Anna worked for 7 years at NASA as a biomedical flight controller for the International Space Station. She received her bachelor's degree in mathematics and Spanish from Texas Christian University and her master's degree in biomedical engineering from Duke University. Let's hear a little bit more from our other SpaceX team member, Anna Walker-Menon.
I did always dream of going to space. I think I was captivated by the beauty of our universe and the perspective and learning you can gain from that vantage point. So while I recognized it was a distant likelihood to ever end up getting to be there, I have always dreamed of getting to be there. I fell in love with space on a field trip in the 4th grade. I got to experience a day in the life of an astronaut as well as a flight controller in mission control, and I knew from that moment that this was an industry I wanted to be a part of. I studied math and engineering in college and graduate school, but the whole time just kept avidly pursuing the space industry. I was so thrilled when I got a job out of graduate school at NASA, and after about 7 years there, transitioned over to SpaceX, and I have been here ever since. On launch day, I think I will have a lot of things on my mind. I think one piece will be intense focus, remembering all of the work and the learning that we have gone through, thanks to SpaceX, to execute every piece of this mission to the best of our abilities. I will also be thinking about the massive team that it took to get to this moment, and probably honestly feeling a lot of gratitude. And then thirdly, I think I will be trying to memorize the moment. I think it's going to fly by, and I think I will try really hard to memorize the sounds, the feelings, the thoughts, the experiences in the rooms around me, so that I can freeze it in my mind and someday look back and recall what it felt like to be there. My name is Anna Menon, and I am one of the mission specialists as well as a medical officer on the Polaris Dawn mission.
Well, Anna certainly got her wish in terms of having an opportunity to freeze the moment as we had to push off of our initial T0 due to weather conditions. But in those packages, you got some glimpses into the training that the Polaris Dawn crew had to undergo. They not only went through the same SpaceX training as our NASA astronauts, but they also had to train to perform an EVA, or an extravehicular activity, or spacewalk, as it's better known as. For basic SpaceX training, they were trained on everything from orbital mechanics to how to live in microgravity. They also ran through numerous simulations of what the full mission will look like while seated inside our Dragon training spacecraft.
Yeah, and in addition to ensuring they are familiar with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, the crew went through an extensive training regimen to build their physical endurance and mental toughness, ensuring they are well-rounded and prepared for spaceflight, and especially for the first ever commercial spacewalk. From scuba diving to skydiving, we had an opportunity to talk to the crew about some of the rigorous training that they went through, and here's what they had to say.
The bulk of the training has been rightfully focused on the EVA, or the spacewalks. In a development program, you don't know what you need to train to. Like, how can we run pressurized operations, simulate microgravity, but also have like a simulator that's powered, with hatches to get in and out of, so we don't have to submerge that in a pool.
We looked at a suspension system solution where we can set up a physics model that allows you to pressurize the suit, put on a harness, and then a hoist will lift a suited crew member up. And you can basically use one finger and you press down and your whole body will move up, just like in space.
It allowed us to really put into practice the different piece-by-piece steps that are necessary to complete this operation safely.
One aspect of our training has been scuba diving. The buoyancy allows us to kind of experience a different environment. The lack of communication is a challenge associated with scuba diving.
You rely on alternate forms of communication. You'll use different hand signals to communicate, like I'm okay, you're okay. So I would say scuba diving has a ton of great training lessons that are directly applicable to our spacewalk.
I have to say, I think the max fun here was the skydiving we did at the Air Force Academy. That was some of the best training ever.
When I dropped out of that airplane, sitting in the airplane as I was going up, I felt those nerves, all of that rush of emotions that comes with, recognizing that you are about to do a really high consequence operation.
And you're standing out, leaning into the wind, out of an aircraft, and then you just let go and you fall. It was incredible training, some of the most memorable training we've done.
For the centrifuge training, the purpose is to go through both a launch and a reentry, as well as a launch escape mission profile in this human centrifuge that's spinning you around and imparting forces on your body that are similar to the ones that we will experience when we go through those operations actually in space.
When you're in space, you have to deal with the circumstances that you're dealt. Similar fashion is climbing a mountain. You're on the side of a mountain, it's taken days to get to where you're at, approaching the summit. You're dehydrated, you're hungry. You learn to manage those stressors. And those are all good preparation techniques in getting ready for space exploration.
We've had it all. We've had unbelievable, highs, and we've had lows. It's just been a great 2 years of growth. Some of the best times of my life.
Dragon is the first private spacecraft to take humans to the International Space Station and it's currently the only vehicle capable of returning significant amounts of cargo to Earth. It's also the first private spacecraft to take an all-civilian crew to orbit during the Inspiration mission in 2021. Over the last 4 years, the spacecraft has supported 13 human spaceflight missions and flown 50 crew members representing 14 countries. Through missions like Inspiration 4 and Polaris Dawn, Dragon is helping lay the groundwork for deep space exploration, rapidly expanding our knowledge of how humans will adapt, live, and work in space. Dragon can also help discover more about our home planet. With upcoming missions like From 2, we aim to do exactly that. Named in honor of the ship that helped explorers first reach Earth's Arctic and Antarctic regions, the crew of From 2 will be the first to explore Earth from a polar orbit. From 2 will be SpaceX's 6th commercial astronaut mission and will allow the crew to observe Earth's polar regions through Dragon's cupola at an altitude of 425 to 450 kilometers. Over the years, Dragon has proven to be quite a versatile spacecraft. It can autonomously dock to the space station when outfitted with the ISS docking adapter. In free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola for the best views while in orbit, and that'll be the case with the upcoming From 2 mission. Finally, we have our newest option, which is the Skywalker hardware to support a spacewalk, and the Skywalker will be making its debut on Polaris Dawn. And in addition, who knows what else the future will bring. Now, while the crew gets situated in Dragon, let's take a moment to get familiar with the spacecraft that we will call home, that the crew will call home for the next 5 days. Designed to be the safest spacecraft ever flown, the fully autonomous Dragon stands nearly 27 feet tall and 13 feet in diameter. Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers, but for today's mission, it's carrying the 4 members of the Polaris Dawn crew. The crew will spend the majority of their time in the pressurized section, which is the top portion of the spacecraft you see there on your screen, and this allows for transport of people and environmentally sensitive cargo. Dragon's trunk, which sits just below the pressurized section, not only carries unpressurized cargo, but also supports the spacecraft during ascent, and it remains attached to Dragon until shortly before re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. And as you can see there, half of the trunk is covered in solar panels on the left side, and that's to provide power to Dragon during flight. The spacecraft is also equipped with 16 Draco thrusters, which are used to orient the spacecraft during the mission. Each Draco thruster is capable of generating around 90 pounds of force in the vacuum of space, and these engines are just as important to Dragon as the Merlin engines are to Falcon 9. In addition to these 16 Draco thrusters, there are 8 Super Dracos, and these power the spacecraft's launch escape system. In the very unlikely event of an emergency, the Super Draco engines can power Dragon half a mile away from the launch vehicle in less than 8 seconds. And just like the Falcon 9 first stage, Dragon is also reusable. In fact, the Polaris Dawn crew is flying today in the exact same spacecraft for NASA's Crew 1 mission, as well as Inspiration 4. That said, there are a few changes that we've made to Dragon for this mission. In order to accommodate a spacewalk, this is the first Dragon to be outfitted with a Skywalker in place of the cupola observation dome. The Skywalker is a structure that is mounted to the top of Dragon, as you can see there, and the astronauts will use this to assist in exiting and re-entering the spacecraft during their spacewalk. This Dragon is also carrying Starlink, making this the first mission to attempt to use the Starlink network in orbit. Inside of Dragon is a router connected to a user terminal located in Dragon's trunk, and this terminal will be linked to a new device known as the Plug and Placer, which will enable the spacecraft to communicate with Starlink satellites that will be in orbit below Dragon. Now, we're very excited to see all of this in action, but Dragon has to get up there first. So let's take a look at the rocket that will be taking our crew and Dragon to space. Dragon will be delivered to orbit today by SpaceX's Falcon 9, the first orbital class rocket capable of reflight. Reusability allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, and that in turn drives down the cost of spaceflight. To date, Falcon 9 has performed 369 orbital launches, 326 landings, and 300 reflights. Standing about 65.5 meters tall, or about 215 feet, Falcon 9 is a 2-stage rocket that provides 1.7 million pounds of thrust on its first stage, thanks to those 9 Merlin M1D engines. And today's mission will be the 4th launch and landing for this particular booster. It previously supported NASA's Crew 8 mission to the International Space Station in March earlier this year. It's also supported 2 SpaceX Starlink missions. Now, after stage separation, when the first stage has done the bulk of its job for the day, it will initiate 2 burns as it makes its way back down towards the surface of Earth. First is the entry burn to help slow Falcon 9 down as it prepares to re-enter the thicker layers of Earth's atmosphere. Finally, the landing burn will further decelerate the rocket just enough to perform a precision landing on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. And that drone ship is currently stationed downrange in the Atlantic Ocean. The Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs, and these are made of state-of-the-art carbon fiber with an aluminum honeycomb. These are placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket, and they are stowed during ascent and deploy just ahead of landing. Now, moving up the rocket, a Falcon 9's second stage engine ignites a few seconds after stage separation, and this engine can be restarted multiple times to place multiple payloads into different orbits. The second stage is powered by one single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC engine, and this engine is capable of more than 220,000 pounds of thrust. The MVAC features a significantly larger expansion nozzle to maximize the engine's efficiency in the vacuum of space, and at full power, the Merlin vacuum engine operates with the greatest efficiency ever for an American-made hydrocarbon rocket engine. And of course, let's not forget about the unsung inner stage, a composite structure that connects the first and second stages. It also houses the pneumatic pushers that allow the first and second stages to separate during flight. Inside of the inner stage, or rather outside of the inner stage, is where you'll find Falcon 9's 4 hypersonic grid fins, and these are at the base of the inner stage. They help orient the rocket during re-entry. Here in Hawthorne, you can actually have lunch in the cafe while watching the inner stages being made just across the aisle. Looks like we're just at about T-minus 2 hours or so. So while we continue to count down, how are things going, John?
Well, Atticus, things are about where we left it before. Inside T-minus 2 hours, you can see with the live shot there of the pad deck, looking at the 2 elevators we used a few hours ago to bring the crew up and the view up on top of the fixed service structure. We do have that light rain shower that we're talking about. Actually, right now, we would be at about T-minus 3 minutes, and the weather would be red. So the good news is when we made the decision to pause the countdown and go to the second T0, we avoided what would have been a scrub right now. Because as you may recall, once we begin loading propellant onto the Falcon 9 at T-minus 35 minutes, you're committed then. You've got to get down to 0 and launch, or you're scrubbed for the day. Now, we did not start propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes. A little bit of a status refresh. We got down to T-minus 44 minutes and 30 seconds approximately, and we called a pause or a hold in the countdown. We had just finished the electronic poll verifying that the Falcon team was go to load propellant into the Falcon 9, but we did not actually get that far. All evening or early morning, as the case may be, at Kennedy Space Center, we've been watching the weather. The launch weather officer had advised the team that a frontal boundary had come ashore in Florida. That was creating scattered cells that would pop up and occasionally violate the cumulus cloud rule, or in this case, as we just saw with the pad deck view there, or up on top of the fixed service structure, we were getting rain showers with rain higher up in the atmosphere than we would be allowed to fly through. So we continued to count down, fingers crossed, heading for that first T0, which was planned for 7:38 Universal Time. Inside T-minus 1 hour, it was still very uncertain whether or not the weather would cooperate for that first T0. The team took the decision down as far as they could inside of T-minus 50 minutes, trying to get the last little bit of information. But just as we thought we were going to press on and go with the original T0, we saw a cell pop up on the radar map that exceeded conditions. We looked at that and decided to go ahead and hold the clock. We heard the Corps then go back up, talk to the crew, tell them that we were held, and then we recycled to the second T0. Now we have 3 T0 opportunities. The first one is now passing us by as we get ready at 7 hours and 38 minutes Universal Time, 10 minutes from now, and that would have been a scrub. The next one that we are aiming for is coming up at 9 hours, 23 minutes, 49 seconds Universal Time, just under the 2 hours you see there on the countdown clock. There is a third opportunity if we need it at 11 hours, 15 minutes Universal Time. The problem we have is the weather is still uncertain enough that the team can't make a decision whether the second T0 or the third T0 is the best one. We're going to continue counting down, obviously, as you can see on the clock there. The scattered rain showers we see, those should clear out of the way. But we most recently had another no-go condition pop up. The surface electric field, essentially the measure of how the atmosphere is electrically charged, has violated criteria. We're going to continue to watch that. We think that one will clear. Primarily, we're continuing to worry about the cumulus clouds and the possibility of having to fly through rain on the way up the northeast coast of the United States as we head into the orbit at just over 51 degrees inclination. The Corps has talked to the crew on board Dragon. The mission director for Dragon, they have done their readiness polls. We've also checked with the SpaceX Falcon 9 team. They are go. Also, it appears that the next T0, there is no proximity warnings or concerns with any orbital satellites. Sometimes you have to move a launch window a minute or two if there might be a conjunction in space. Right now, it looks like we don't have any of those issues. The big question will be whether or not the weather is going to be go at the next T0. The other plan that we have is while we are in this hold for a little while, this is giving the Dragon and Falcon launch teams a chance to rotate people on and off console, take a few minutes break. It's been a long early morning for the team. Everybody continues to have support. So, we're ready to support anything that may come up, but we are giving the crew a chance to refresh. The next major event is we continue asking the launch weather officer, what's the forecast look like? What's the forecast look like? The next big one coming up will be at T-minus 1 hour and 30 minutes, just over 22 minutes from now. That's when Dragon is going to rotate the seats back into the launch position. The crew right now is sitting upright inside the Dragon that you can see there. The crew access arm, and there's a view of the crew in their upright posture, and then we'll rotate to horizontal into the launch position to get ready. That'll be a little later in the count than we had done it the first time around, but that's fine. The hatch is closed, leak checks, everything is copacetic in Dragon. So they'll get ready in an hour and a half and go back into the launch position in their seats. We'll continue to bring it down. We'll get inside T-minus 1 hour where we'll do another evaluation on what the launch looks like. And then fingers crossed, we'll be able to press past T-minus 45 minutes and get into the prop load at T-minus 35 minutes. Everything continues to look good. One reminder, the only people on the pad right now are the Dragon crew themselves, the 4 people inside the Dragon. You can see that crew access arm. The seals have been deflated. They're retracted. All of the handholds are out of the way. Everything's been cleared. The only thing really waiting for everybody is ideally we get inside 45 minutes so we can retract the arm. So nobody's going back out to the pad right now. All the vehicles are cleared off. So we're going to just continue to give you status updates as we go along. But Kate, hopefully the second T0 is the winner. The first one turns out the weather is red right now, and we wouldn't have been able to go.
Yep. Well, you know what? It's been a good rehearsal so far. And realistically speaking, while the Polaris Dawn crew, I'm sure, would be delighted to be closer to, wait, how long have we been holding now? Would they be in space now? I'm not sure. My brain is a little mushy at this point. But the point is that they would still be in the Dragon capsule right now, regardless, in their seats, most likely. So they're not really doing anything significantly different physically anyway. Now, we did, as you heard John say, we did rotate the seats a bit so that they could kind of like stretch out a little bit more to be a little bit more comfortable. So, I'm guessing there's probably some like charades happening or other games involving like hand signs and so
whatever they can do while still strapped into their seats.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah,
oh, look, there they are.
There you can see them on their tablets.
All four of them on their
them.
tablets. I wonder if we've equipped those tablets with any games. I hope so.
I mean, they'd have a lot more mobility in these EVA suits to be able to play some more games in these suits versus the IVA suits.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Gorgeous shot there of 39A. Like we mentioned before, we are in a not quite a holding pattern because we're still progressing with the launch countdown, but we did have to reset the T0 clock due to weather, and we are fingers crossed that our second targeted T0 time will be more fruitful than the first one.
Yeah, we are patiently waiting. It is T minus 1 hour and 49 minutes until our new T0. But yeah, the crew is patiently waiting, relaxing inside of Dragon. And so now during the EVA for the Polaris Dawn crew, they will be wearing our newly designed EVA spacesuits, which we see them wearing in the Dragon capsule. And there you can see the suit on your screen. Building a base on the moon and a city on Mars will require thousands of suits. So the development of this suit and the EVA that's going to be performed on this mission are important steps to a scalable design for spacesuits on future long-duration missions. So let's take a look at the making of the suits our crew will be wearing during the first
on June 6th down in Starbase, Texas, as you see there. The Super Heavy booster lifted off successfully and completed a full duration ascent burn.
Starship executed another successful hot stage separation, powering down all but 3 of Super Heavy's Raptor engines and successfully igniting the 6 second stage Raptor engines before separating the vehicles. Following separation, the Super Heavy booster successfully completed its flip maneuver and boost back burn to send it back towards its splashdown zone.
The booster's flight ended with a landing burn and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico, 7 minutes and 24 seconds into flight. The landing was caught by both the onboard camera as well as one of our marine buoys.
Meanwhile, Starship's 6 second stage Raptor engines successfully powered the vehicle to space and placed it on the planned trajectory for coast. Starship made a controlled re-entry, successfully making it through the phases of peak heating and maximum aerodynamic pressure, demonstrating the ability to control the vehicle using its flaps while descending through the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds.
And speaking of those flaps, Starship provided live video throughout re-entry via SpaceX's Starlink satellites, providing most spectacular views, and we
a fully reusable transportation system.
Now looking forward to Flight 5, we're getting ready to attempt the first ever tower catch of a booster. Now, returning the booster after launch is a...
Speaking of rapidly, as of August 21st, we had both towers fully stacked, which is so incredible to see.
That's a real photo. That's awesome.
So stay tuned for exciting updates as we get closer to this next launch. And as always, excitement is guaranteed.
Now, for those that have just recently joined us, you picked a great time because we are exactly 1 hour and 1 minute and 13 seconds away from launch. Welcome back to the coverage for the Polaris to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Polaris Dawn is the first mission in the Polaris program. The program will consist of up to 3 human spaceflight missions that will demonstrate new technologies, conduct extensive research, and ultimately culminate in the first flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board.
The Polaris Dawn crew will be performing some incredible firsts in space, including the first ever commercial spacewalk. And this mission will fly higher than any Dragon mission to date before splashing down off the coast of Florida. And over the course of their mission in orbit, the crew will conduct a wide range of research in microgravity designed to advance both human health on Earth and our understanding of human health during future long-duration space flights.
Now, liftoff time is still holding, but the last POV that we had was 35%, and we heard that it was going to improve as we get closer to T0, so fingers crossed it stays that way. Now, over the last more than 3 hours, I think more like 5 hours at this point, the Polaris Dawn crew donned their SpaceX suits and were then transported to the pad where our crew entered Dragon spacecraft, the one you see there on your screen. Since arriving at the spacecraft, the crew were helped by our closeout team to get in their seats, those seats that you see there, attach their suits to the special umbilicals that provide.
And the closeout team has already departed the pad. Once that hatch was sealed, they were able to clear the area and clear the pad. And now we've been doing some weather checks as we got closer and closer to T0. So again, we will be doing another final go, no go for launch. Before we get to that final go, no go, the next team will do an internal poll, making sure that conditions are right with Falcon 9, Dragon, the crew, the range, and the weather, of course. T-minus 1 hour until liftoff is the final evaluation checkpoint, or the last opportunity for the SpaceX team to adjust the launch time if it's needed. And with everything so far on track, let's take a moment to meet the crew that will be flying today.
The Polaris Dawn mission has many time objectives, so the Polaris program chose a crew of experts who know each other well and have a foundation of trust that they can build upon as they undertake challenges of this mission. Mission Commander Jared Isaacman served as commander of Inspiration 4, the world's first all-civilian mission to space.